my beautiful friends. It is an amazing day. Happy day after debate night. We were here late into the evening watching JD Vance give the proverbial backhand to Tiananmen Tim Walz. We had some good conversation about that this morning on our Membos Only stream. But we are going to jump into today some very, very fresh out of the oven business. We're talking about Jack Smith. And so the tubes have connected themselves. Hello, my friends. It's a beautiful Wednesday, and I hope your week is unfolding very nicely. Last night, we had an update on the J6 case before the debate got underway. We read through a filing from Trump's defense team, and they were rubbing Jack Smith's nose in his prior filings, saying, Jack, how dare you want to release all of this material in the month before the election, when months ago you said if Trump talked about any of these witnesses or any of this evidence, it was going to be the end of democracy. The administration of justice was going to be tarnished and we were all going to die. Well, now they're perfectly happy publishing it all. We're going to go through it. It's 165 pages, plus we'll read through Chutkan's order that approved all of this. And it came out very, very quickly after Tim Walz's very poor performance. And we're curious as to what caused the quickness from the court. Why did they publish this thing so rapidly when there was still opportunity for a back and forth on this a bit? Seems like Judge Chutkan hurried through it. So let me give you a preview of what we're talking about today. Some good stuff coming up. 2 orders, as you can see. Well, we have 1 order and then Jack's official motion. So these are the items that dropped fresh out of the oven today, and they're big filing, so we're going to spend the show on it. But it's the opinion and order from the judge as it relates to Trump. And we didn't have a lot of back and forth on a lot of this. On the seal stuff, there was a reply that looks like it came in by the USA yesterday after the show, and then boom, we had an order and a publication. So Chutkan says, here you go, and here it is. It's dropped. So we've got 2 things we'll take a look at. One, this is the order from Judge Chutkan, which is her basis for releasing this all in the first place. She's going to say, Trump, there's no reason for us to make them qualify this in any way, shape, or form, and so it's now published. Then boom, simultaneously with this is the order, is the actual motion from Jack Smith for immunity determinations. You see how they've phrased that there. Something nobody's ever seen before, but now we're going to have this filing because Judge Chutkan wants to get at least a smear job on the books before the election. It's their last gasp. They're running out of options. Fanny's in total disarray. Jack got told he's not a real boy in Florida. Bragg's case, the sentencing got postponed because that trial was riddled with immune conduct, and you can't unring that bell. So this is it. All the eggs are in the basket. You can see it's a 165 pager. We're going to spend some time on it today. We'll see how much we get through. Of course, we're going to get through the bulk of the introductory stuff, and then we'll fast forward through it. Now, I got to tell you, I did go through this a bit before the show was coming up, just so we had a little bit of direction that we could follow. And there's not a lot of new stuff in here. We were here spending time covering the J6 fake committee hearings with their illegally constituted committee under HR 503. They were supposed to have a certain number of Republicans on there. They didn't, in violation of their own rules, and it wasn't even close. So we watched a lot of that. We know what their fake narrative was, and it's a lot of the same, but we'll go through. We'll see if there's any goodness in there. Because this is it. This is their final hurrah. And a lot of people on the left, a lot of people in the media, they're going to be very excited about it. We've also got Clavicle Girl. She's going to be showing up, I believe, tomorrow on MSNBC. And they're very excited about that. So there's going to be a full court press on some of this stuff from the usual suspects. But yes, Cassidy Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl, was going to be on with somebody. Let me see if I can pull this up real quickly. Yeah, Cassidy. I can't find it right now. We'll find it as we go through this. But tomorrow, apparently, she's going to be on with somebody in the media. And they're very excited about continuing this charade. So we'll talk about that. Then we've also got some reaction from Trump and from Fox News. The Trump campaign came out. They are responding to deranged Jack Smith and Judge Chutkan and their actual election interference. It's happening right now, so we're not going to have to wake up after the election and say, did they rig the election? Yeah, they've been doing it since about 2015. And this is just the current iteration of it. So we'll see what Trump said in response to all of Jack's stuff. And we'll, of course, dig into your comments at the end. As you can see, they're calling Cassidy the star witness over at MSNBC. And so she's going on with Lawrence O'Donnell. That's going to be apparently tonight. Oh, gosh. So you see what's happening. They're just going to try to make this all J6 now. It was the final question. Then we have the J6 Jack Smith book report. And then we've got Cassidy Hutchinson coming out. As we learned from ex-CIA lawyer Joseph Sweeney, that is what we call a propaganda cluster bomb. She lied. There was no clavicle attack, okay? It was all made up. Liz Cheney got her to flip around and to change her story at a key moment. So we'll go through it. We got a bunch of good stuff to get to today, my friends. Very excited you're here. Before we get into it, we got to talk about our testosterone. You know, it's time to outlift the left. One way we can do that is with our friends at V-Shred. Now, most guys don't even know about their testosterone. They think it's bad genetics or aging or something like that. But there is a lot of evidence that that's not the real culprit. It could just be something you're eating every day and something you probably think is even healthy. Now, there is this one food that's been scientifically shown to devastate testosterone levels. It's not just junk food. It's not just sugar. Something that's a little even more unexpected. And if you eat it enough, going to wreck your testosterone, drain your energy, crush your motivation. But there's good news. You got to just cut this out. Our friends at V-Shred, seen here on the TV, linked down in the description below, have shared firsthand what works for them, what's working for their clients, how they're building muscle, burning fat, feeling more energized than ever. It's a great video, and you can go check it out. Check out the team behind Cutting Edge Health and Fitness. They're going to show you this testosterone-killing food and show you how to improve your body's potential. So check it out. Go to SCULPTnation.com/Robert. Link is down in the description below. SCULPTnation.com/Robert. Listen to the V-Shred experts. They're going to break it all down. You're going to make this one simple change, and you're going to start feeling better. And you're going to get jacked, baby. Boost that T with our friends at V-Shred. All right, so check out the link down in the description below. Thanks for supporting our sponsors. Thanks for getting jacked and supporting our work here on the channel. All right, so without any further ado, let's get into business. One more comment. This Friday, come join us at Defending Democracy. Come join us at this link, Davos in the Desert. It's down in the description below. Going to have a virtual conference. Your boy is speaking at 10:15 Arizona, 1:15 Eastern time, right there. And there's going to be other great people here, including John Eastman, John Seiler. We've got many others. You can see the list is just awesome. Joe Sweeney, who we interviewed last week, is going to be here. So come check it out. The link is down in the description below. This Friday, baby, this Friday. Go get your tickets. It's going to be good. And they're doing good work. They're really bringing a lot of people together. So go check it out. All right. Now, without any further ado, let's get into it because we've got some serious documents to attend to. Starting now. Jack Smith and Judge Chutkan did it. They released their big, giant book report intending to smear Trump because they're not going to get their election done in time, their trial done in time before the election. They wanted so badly to do this back in March, but immunity, that dastardly little concept that has existed for, 234 years, functionally speaking, until Democrats got in charge, has now stalled their momentum. But not to be deviated from their efforts to rig elections, they have colluded and released an opinion and order from the judge that is being appended by and released for all of us to read Jack's big 165-page motion for immunity determinations. It's a big one. It's the final last-ditch effort. It's the DOJ and the DC Circuit's October surprise. Here you go. 165 pages that the media is going to salivate over. And we're going to see if there's anything even useful inside this for their case, because they have really beaten the January 6th issue into the ground. Is there anything left? I mean, this thing is dead already. You keep eating it, but it's dead already. Let's see what's inside. So, starting with the order from the judge, Trump's defense team filed a motion and they said, Your Honor, how dare you publish all of this stuff? You already said Trump is gagged. Trump cannot talk about any evidence, any witnesses, share any of his opinions publicly, because if the public knows about the inner operations of this case, justice will be unfairly administered. And there will be safety and harm problems that would apply to all of the witnesses. And so this could be devastating for America. And then suddenly they want to publish it all out of nowhere when they're not going to have their trial, which is when this evidence should be presented so that it could be cross-examined in real time by the defense attorney, right? The confrontation clause to confront your accusers. And you don't want all of this stuff tried in the court of public opinion. That's why we have the court of law. But here is what Judge Chutkan has said. She writes, all right, look, now the government has requested that we can publish this stuff, but they're going to redact some names of individuals and other things. Now, Trump doesn't object to any of the proposed redactions, but calls for additional sealing and further briefing, right? Trump is saying, hey, you can't publish all this stuff. You told us that if we did talk about this, there would be major repercussions, and now you're trying to reverse course? Totally ridiculous. So the judge says, well, here's what we're going to do. I am going to grant Jack Smith's motions, and this stuff can be published on the docket. Says, well, look, now all of a sudden, there is an important presumption in favor of public access to all aspects and facets of criminal court proceedings. Unless Trump wants to talk about it, then the public can't get access through Trump because Trump is gagged. And so in light of that presumption, she says, we're going to make sure that this is published. Now, the court has already determined that it's appropriate to seal some of the materials in here that we'll see. And the First Amendment does not require the disclosure of that redacted information because it's witness names and other things. The redactions make it more difficult to confirm witness identities, reducing the likelihood of their harassment or intimidation, and it serves an important function. Now, Trump came in and asked Judge Chutkan, said, you can't publish this. This is insane. First, Trump asserted, says Chutkan, that in addition to the individual names, that all references to titles and other witnesses should also be redacted. But the court already considered that argument and said this is good enough. Privacy interests are still served by the name redactions, and if people determine who these people are by inference, that's their problem. Now, Trump does not directly engage with the other factors, and so his objection is not going to be valid. The remaining factors go in the other direction, and so it favors more disclosure. So considered together, this does not warrant sealing any job positions, and this is going to be sufficient. Now, Trump, as we talked about yesterday, pre-debate, said, second, Trump also asks the court to require Jack's office to show why this is going to be consistent with what they asked previously. Remember, Jack was like, you have to gag Trump, man. If Trump even mentions a witness name, that witness is going to have a heart attack and die immediately. And Chutkan was like, yeah, it's true. It could happen. I don't know, maybe. So you're gagged. Now, Trump does not clearly state his own objection to that disclosure. Right? So Trump was saying, wait a minute. You said we can't talk about anything. Now you're saying we can talk about everything. Okay. Now they say the governing protective order that gagged Trump said that we could talk about stuff in certain situations. And so these are just excerpts and stuff. And so these are not the type of releases and disclosures that we were talking about that was so dangerous. And the excerpted statements are vital to the purpose of the motion. And so we need them. So the court will not require redaction of those things because they need them here. Trump speaking about this stuff was not necessary. So Trump is gagged, Jack Smith is not. See how this works? In addition to the assertions discussed above, Trump repeatedly accuses Jack of bad faith partisan bias. Judge Chutkan is just appalled. I can't believe this. These accusations, for which Trump provides no support, continue a pattern of Trump filings focusing on political rhetoric rather than addressing the legal issues at hand. Now, not only is that focus unresponsive and it's unhelpful to me, says Judge Chutkan, but it's also unbefitting of the experienced defense counsel. Oh, she's scolding Trump's lawyers. It's unbefitting of you, and it's undermining of judicial proceedings in this case. This whole case is a joke. Chutkan, you've undermined your own proceedings. Trump has had an opportunity to make his case that the prosecution is improperly motivated. She says, I already ruled on it. Future filings should be directed to the issues before the court. And so Chutkan, immediately after Tim Walz's bad night, is like, let's publish all this, baby. Let's go. For the reasons set forth, it's hereby granted that you can file on the public docket Jack Smith's disgusting election interference smear job book report by Judge Chutkan. And so with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. Jack Smith's 165-page election interference smear job against Trump in collusion with Judge Chutkan out of the D.C. Circuit, all orchestrated and coordinated by the Biden-Harris administration through Attorney General Merrick Garland, led by Jack Smith, who is an illegitimate prosecutor, according to Judge Eileen Cannon, after his case was dismissed there for being illegally appointed. The DOJ, having stolen $20 million plus in order to launch these prosecutions, has violated multiple basic constitutional safeguards like due process by using different jurisdictions to initiate their efforts against Trump, going to D.C. to get search warrants in Florida and so on, and violating Trump's attorney-client privilege at every turn, raiding his house, taking photos, and more. Now, Jack Smith, in spite of all of that, is not done. He says here that now we have to determine immunity for President Trump. And we'll remind ourselves what that looks like. But we also ask ourselves this very interesting question. We've got about 30 plus days before the election happens. And the DOJ is not supposed to be doing stuff that might impact the outcome of the election, right? This is election interference again. It's been election interference since this indictment was filed many months ago. This new indictment is even fresher because they had to do a second draft because they goofed the first one up so badly. So now he's going to drop all of this. It better be good because we've already had, I think there were 8 episodes in that terrible season of Liz Cheney and the J6ers visit Washington. Terrible show. But it was very repetitive. But we had 8 episodes of that, and we got a bunch of lies. We got Clavicle Girl Cassidy Hutchinson saying that Trump was in there ripping people's heads off on the way to the Capitol. It was lunacy. So this better be good from Jack. Let's see what he says. All right, dear Judge Chutkan, in America, all the people in the media salivating now, having fun with this tonight and enjoying themselves, writes, all right, now Donald Trump asserts that he is immune from prosecution for his criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election because he claims it entailed official conduct. Jack says, not so. Now, although Trump was the incumbent president during the charged conspiracies, his scheme was fundamentally a private one. Working with a team of private co-conspirators, there are going to be a bunch of lawyers in here, so to refresh ourselves, it's going to be Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, some others. The defendant acted as a candidate when he pursued multiple criminal means to disrupt, through fraud and deceit, the government, by which, and the function, right, the actual government to function, by which votes are collected and counted, a function that the president has no official role in. So let's just a debrief here very quickly. Remember that the Supreme Court decision, what we're talking about here is immunity. Is Trump immune for the conduct that is alleged in the indictment? The Supreme Court already came out, gave us these 3 buckets of conduct. So bucket 1, 2, and 3. This is this direction, most immune. Okay, so this is going to be the strongest immunity going this direction. Absolute immunity is going to be in this far right bucket. If the Constitution articulates clearly that you have the power to do the thing, you cannot be prosecuted for that. You're immune for that. If you do the thing, Constitution says you can do this, you do it, you're good. Absolutely immune from that. In the other bucket, we have not immune conduct, okay? We have non-official conduct, and we're just going to say no immunity over here. This is for stuff that is clearly outside the official conduct of the president. It's not official actions at all, and so it doesn't deserve any immunity. Then we have this middle bucket, which we'll call the presumptive bucket, which means anything that is essentially not anything that's kind of on this side of this line is going to be in the presumptive bucket, which means it is immune unless you can show that it should not be immune and you should be over here. You have to rebut the presumption. So most conduct, unless it's clearly not official, is going to fall into one of these two buckets. And so Jack Smith is going to have to come out and show, no, it's in this bucket, which is going to be what the attempt of this motion is here. Now, you'll also notice that there are going to be there's going to be a lot of overlap. If we're going to use Kamala's Venn diagrams, we're going to have official conduct here. We're going to have non-official conduct over here. Looks like areolas from Engeron's courtroom. But those are the Venn diagrams. If they're totally separate, Jack Smith is going to make this false premise that there's not official conduct here and there's official conduct over here, and we can clearly delineate the two. That's not how this works. What in reality this is going to look like is like this. All right. And it's going to be a big gray area here as to whether this is immune, whether this is official or not. The Supreme Court has said that if it's on the outer perimeter, right, if it's even questionable, or another standard, if something that looks like it's not official, if you incriminate and prosecute that offense, if that then encroaches on the presidency or on the executive, you got to put it in the presumptive bucket. So strong immunity protections. And they're going to say that Trump was acting all over here, and he can't even make the argument that it was official at all. And hopefully that makes sense. So now, as we get back to this filing, they say in the Supreme Court case, they held that presidents are immune from prosecution for certain official conduct, and that Trump's use of the DOJ in furtherance of his efforts, as was alleged, counted. And they remanded to Chutkan to determine whether the remaining allegations are immunized. Okay, so what Jack is covering up here is like, oh, the first indictment was filled with immune conduct in the original. Then he had to do a second draft of this and then wrote his second draft and then deleted all of the immunity, or he alleges from that, even though he still has the conversation with Mike Pence in there. Now, the answer to that question is no. This motion, says Jack, provides a comprehensive account of Trump's private criminal conduct, so not public, he's not a president, sets forth a legal framework from the Supreme Court that we're going to apply. We're going to apply this framework to Trump's conduct to show that it's not immune, and even if it is immune, or even if it is official, that any presumption of immunity, anything in that second bucket, should be in the first bucket. Now, the court says Trump must stand trial for his private crimes as any other citizen. Now, this motion provides the framework for this necessarily fact-bound immunity decision, saying the Supreme Court said we have to do this. So they're going to break it up into three sections. First is going to be a statement of this case, going to be facts that the government is going to prove at trial. And so we'll read through that. Then section 2 is going to talk about presidential immunity and how this works and why Trump is not immune. Section 3 is then going to show why Trump and his conversation with Mike Pence is rebutted. Wow, this is an interesting admission. Although Trump's discussion with Mike Pence about their, quote, official responsibilities qualifies as official, yeah, the government rebuts the presumption of that immunity. We'll see, right? Now, they're admitting, okay, this is in the second bucket, and that second bucket has strong protection. So that's a pretty interesting admission there. But we're going to rebut it. So Trump starts in the victorious position. If we're done, Trump wins. And all of the defendants' remaining conduct was unofficial. They say so. He was running as a candidate, not as a president. And so both of those Venn diagram circles totally separate from one another. There's no overlap, and everything in this category can be charged accordingly. Because if there's overlap, there's immunity. Now, finally, the last section, section 4, explains the relief sought by the government and what they want this court to do, which is to find that Trump is not immune and to find that Trump must stand trial based on our second draft indictment. All right, so that's what they're going to do. Now, let's get into it. Saying, when Trump lost the election, Jack Smith says, he resorted to crimes to try to stay in office. With private co-conspirators, Trump launched a series of desperate plans to win the states he'd lost. 7 states, we know what they are. His efforts included lying to state officials to induce them to ignore the true vote counts. And these are, like he knowingly knows that their true vote count was one thing and then asked them to lie about it. We'll see if we get there. Manufacturing fraudulent votes, trying to get Pence to help, to obstruct Congress. And when all else failed, Trump directed an angry crowd of supporters into the Capitol to obstruct the congressional certification. That's the big culmination. Now, I'm always, so then what? To obstruct the certification, and then that was going to seize the country? Like, it just stops right there. They always do. It just stops. To stop the peaceful transfer of power, which wasn't happening on January 6th, which he did on January 20th when he left and gave the keys to Joe. What? Where is it going from here? I don't know, because it was over like in 4.5 hours. They were back there that night counting the votes and everything happened. So the through line of these efforts was deceit. Trump and his co-conspirators knowingly falsely lied about election fraud, right? Made false claims. They used these lies in furtherance of 3 conspiracies. 1, a conspiracy to interfere with the government function by how the nation collects its results, which I think this is kind of a new thesis. Like, this is new because this wasn't alleged in the original indictment. I don't think it was. I'd have to double check the second new one. A conspiracy to obstruct the official proceeding in which Congress certifies the legitimate results of the election, and a conspiracy against rights of millions of Americans. That was a charge, for sure. All right, anyways, continuing. Now, at its core, Trump's scheme was a private criminal effort. There was no public interest or no role as the executive, as the president, to investigate election fraud. He shouldn't have been doing this at all, they say. Now, in his capacity as a candidate, Trump used deceit to target every stage of the electoral process. And we're getting our first redactions coming in, which through the Constitution, the Electoral Count Act, has a prescribed process. Now, as set forth in detail below, Trump worked with private co-conspirators, including a bunch of private attorneys. Pretty sure CC1 is Rudy. CC2, I'm not sure, but they're interchangeable. The CCs are going to be co-conspirators, and then the Ps are going to be people, persons. So, Rudy, Sidney, Jenna, others, and private political operatives, these people. Now, the defendant also relied heavily on private agents, campaign manager, deputy campaign manager, so on and so forth. So in this section, we're going to explain why none of this is immune. So let's go through the formation of these so-called conspiracies. Ready? Although his multiple conspiracies began after Election Day in 2020, Trump laid the groundwork for his crimes well before then, right? So the conspiracy is way beyond even January 6th. Leading into the election, Trump's private campaign advisors, including P6, a private citizen, and P2, a campaign manager, said that it would be a close election. They said, hey, use campaign advice. It's going to be close. In part because of the time needed to process large numbers of mail-in ballots due to COVID. His campaign advisors are now communicating to him about the method of the fraud that we talked about here and observed. They changed not all, but huge portions of election rules throughout this country. And they used COVID as an excuse to do it. We covered the litigation here on this channel and read through all of the lawsuits and the same patsy agreements that are friendly lawsuits between Jocelyn Benson in Michigan and the Retired Association Alliance of Michigan, coming into these deals to waive the election rules, to delay deadlines so they could count ballots a lot later after the fact, so they could go print them and then dump them into the boxes. And All of it was done on the back of COVID. So they go to Trump, they say, hey, COVID is happening, right? That is the injection point of the fraud. Now, they also told the defendant that the initial returns on election night might be misleading. And we remember this so well. This was the red mirage propaganda that was being distilled everywhere. Oh, don't believe the night of the election results because we're going to rig it the morning after. That he might take an early lead in the vote that would diminish all mail-in ballots because they would count them later. So privately, then Trump told his advisors. Now, we're trying to get into Trump's minds. Did Trump's mind indicate that he knew he lost and that he was lying about all this? Let's see. So privately, and they've got this footnoted here in some redacted, looks like interview doc, says Trump told his advisors in private, including P6 and P7 and P8, the chief of staff for Pence, that in such a scenario, he would simply declare victory before all the ballots were counted and before any winner was projected. So they're like, well, you may not know for like 2 weeks if you won. He's like, well, if I won on election night, I'm going to declare victory on election night. Okay, that's what the plan is. So just, that's the plan. We're not waiting for 2 weeks until they rig it. Now, publicly, Trump began to plant seeds for that false declaration. Well, it wasn't false. We didn't know at the time. He didn't say, right, in this statement, he would simply declare victory before all ballots were counted and any winner was projected. He didn't say he was going to declare victory if he lost. Right? It's an open question. Trump says they haven't counted, so we won. That's what I think. We're not going to go and concede defeat when it hasn't been projected. They're making it sound like he was saying he was going to declare victory if he lost, but they're not even alleging that in this own document. Now, in the months leading up to the election, he refused to say whether he would accept the election results, insisted that he could lose the election only because of fraud, which he did, falsely claimed that the mail-in ballots were inherently fraudulent, which many are, and asserted that only votes counted on election day were valid. So Trump made a bunch of statements about it. We're familiar with them. The only way they can take this election away from us if this is a rigged election by the CIA, by secretaries of states, by fraudulent prosecutors, and more. So by October 2020, then, this person, P1, who's a private political advisor who'd worked for Trump's presidential campaign, began to assist. 3 days before the election, P1 described Trump's plan to a private gathering of supporters. This comes from a footnote 12, redacted, from 11. Looks like an interview. So the quote says, and what's Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory. That doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's the winner. Okay, well, it doesn't mean he's the loser either. After explaining that Biden supporters favored voting by mail, P1 stated further, and so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of it. Okay, that's our strategy. He's going to declare himself a winner when it's open, not when it's lost. There's nothing wrong about that at all. It's just strategy, right? And same thing Al Gore did. They both declared they won. It's not any different than that. Oh, we have to wait until the Supreme Court decides? We both won. No one's conceding. There's nothing illegal about that at all. So immediately following the election day on November 3rd, that's what Trump did, because we didn't know in some locations. And we had questions about it. We still have questions about it. Now, as his private and campaign advisors had predicted in certain states, Trump took an early lead on election day that began to erode. At 11:20, Fox News projected Biden wins Arizona. Our election system here. We're laughable. Now, and then as election day turned to November 4th, Trump was shocked and angry at that development, according to this campaign person. As the election day turned to November 4th, the contest was too close to project a winner, and in discussions about what Trump should say about this, senior advisors said that he should show restraint while the counting continued. And okay, that's fine. You don't have to listen to your senior advisors at all. Who cares? Two private advisors advocated a different course. CC1, CC6 told him, just declare victory. So at about 2:20 a.m., he gave remarks in which he falsely claimed, they write, without evidence or specificity, that there had been fraud in the election and that he had won. He said, this is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. We did. It was an embarrassment to our country. We saw the votes come in at 2 in the morning, right? We went to bed here. We were live streaming it. It was clear as day Trump won. Wake up the next morning, all of a sudden, and we were covering the litigation here, and it all made sense after the fact. Oh, that's right. And then the numbers just kept shifting in the days that followed, happening right in front of our very eyes. We all just sat here. In the immediate post-election period, while Trump claimed fraud without proof, which he's allowed to do, he doesn't need to have proof of the fraud right then and there. He can say, I've got some evidence, I've got some indicia of fraud, I've got some indication of fraud, and there was plenty of people talking about the fraud in real time, saying they're putting up stuff on the windows. We can't get in. It was happening all over the place. So this is Jack Smith's standard of proof. We don't need your standard of proof. You're not the president. Trump can have his own standard of proof. And we were watching it and reading about it on X, on Twitter at the time, in real time. There's proof all over the place. Now, his private operatives sought to create chaos, all right? Rather than seek clarity like Jack Smith would want you to do, I guess you should have called Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi. What do you guys think? At polling places where they continue to tabulate votes, a campaign employee and agent tried to sow confusion when the ongoing vote count in Detroit looked unfavorable to Trump. They said, right, it gives me options to file litigation, and someone wrote this, P5 wrote this. This one's capturing, there's a lot of bad lies about this on X right now. A lot of lefties are saying Trump said something like, make them riot and do it. He never said that. P5 said that. So when you hear that stupid talking point out there, just remember this page. It is page 8. When a colleague suggested that there was going to be unrest reminiscent of the Brooks Brothers riot, a violent effort to stop the vote in Florida after 2000, that never led to any raids of anybody, P5 responded, make them riot, do it, said that. I don't know who that is. But Trump's campaign operatives used similar tactics, including in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, that resulted in confrontations. They were boarding up windows. There's videos of it all over the internet. Contrary to Trump's public claims of victory, his advisors told him, you're going to lose, Trump. On November 7th, a few days later, in a private campaign meeting that included these 3 people, White House staffer who came in to serve as a conduit told Trump, man, there's only a slim chance of winning here. If you want to win, we have to win in Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. And within a week of that assessment, they conceded their litigation in Arizona, and the campaign advisors told him you had lost the election. Now, that same day, in an implicit acknowledgement that he had no lawful way to prevail. So now they're saying this is Trump acknowledging this. Trump sidelined the existing campaign staff responsible for mounting his election challenges. Wait, what? He got a new legal team to find a way to win, and they're saying that he had no lawful way to prevail, right? That's a stretch if you've ever seen one. An implicit acknowledgement? Is this going to be their mens rea? Is this the mindset? Is this Trump's intent? Is this his knowledge? Trump was knowingly. This is it? Because he changed his legal team? Are they serious? It shows that he wanted to win. He did not believe his old legal team, which was obviously not investigating the things that we were investigating, right? They were telling him, like, who was his original legal team? I don't remember their names. But they were telling him what Bill Barr essentially was telling him, right? Bill Barr came in from the DOJ. Did you investigate anything? No. But there's no fraud. Okay. Why? Because your DOJ officials told you that? We were watching it all over the place. From P2, P3, 2 other people, and others who were telling Trump the truth that he did not want to hear. They keep telling him, you lost. Trump turned to another private attorney who was willing to falsely claim victory and spread knowingly false claims of election fraud. And that's going to be Rudy Giuliani comes into the picture. So Trump hires, at the time, a world-class lawyer, right? Rudy had a reputation of saving New York City, being America's mayor during 9/11, one of the most highly respected prosecutors of all time. Trump hires him, and dumb Jack Smith and Molly, actually, I forgot to mention, Molly is the one who wrote all this, evidently. She's highlighter girl, which makes sense. She knows where the tabs are and all the highlights, which she would assemble this. But Jack Smith didn't put his name on it because he's not even a real boy. Pathetic. But hiring somebody to go harder on the case is not acknowledging that you're losing and now you're committing a crime by hiring Rudy Giuliani. It's the dumbest thing ever. But all right, so they're having a hard time. But as we continue. Now, as Trump placed alternating phone calls to person 3 and to Rudy throughout November, person 1 informed another person, another advisor, of the change, saying, close hold, don't tell anyone, but Trump just fired P3 and put CC1 in charge now. And you were to report to Rudy. And when blank asked P2 if someone else was gone, P1 replied, yeah, they all report to Rudy. And that there's a recommendation that if Rudy was not in charge, this thing is over, okay? Trump is in to the end. Now, the next day, consistent with that, Trump announced his change. He said, I look forward to Rudy spearheading this. And Jenna and Sydney and others are coming to join. Truly a great team, wonderful lawyers and representatives. Now, the following, they say Trump knew, right? Now, this is the key point of this. Trump knew that his claims of outcome determinative fraud were false. That's an interesting phrase they put in there. It's not just fraud. You see that? It's not Trump's claims of fraud because there was fraud. So they're saying it's outcome determinative. But even that word is even narrower than fraud. Remember how this went? They said there is no evidence of fraud anywhere. And then we found out there was fraud everywhere. And they said, well, there was no widespread fraud. We said, it's pretty widespread. It's in this state, in this state, in this state, in this. So, well, there's no widespread fraud that changed the outcome of the election. So they kept adding in modifiers. Now there was no widespread fraud that was determined in a court of law to have changed the outcome of the election. Like, okay, there you go. So they're incorporating all of that. It's not outcome determinative fraud. Because the courts didn't change the outcomes. But Trump was investigating it and pursuing it in order to investigate whether there could have been an outcome determinative fraud. Now, following Election Day and throughout the charged conspiracies, Trump and his co-conspirators and their agents, they say, spread lies. That there had been outcome determinative fraud in the election and that Trump had actually won. Now, these lies included dozens of specific claims that there had been substantial fraud in certain states, such as large numbers of dead, non-resident, non-citizens, and other things, voting machines, and more. And Trump and his co-conspirators continued to make them these unsupportive, objectively unreasonable, and ever-changing claims even after they'd been publicly disproven and after advisors had directly informed the defendant that they were untrue. Now, we would add in a bunch of other claims to this. We also thought that there were infrastructure problems, right? They delayed deadlines for ballot collection, which Jack doesn't mention. They waived and made signatures not required in certain locations. I believe one of those states was Wisconsin. Jack doesn't mention that. There were collection changes, ballot harvesting changes. There were many, many changes. But he's only focusing on like the number of dead voters and things like that, which were also in a large part of their filings. But there were many other claims. Now, the evidence demonstrates that Trump knew his fraud claims were false because he continued to make those claims even after his close advisors, acting not in an official capacity, but in a private or campaign-related capacity, told him that they were not true. So that doesn't just follow. Right? If you know something is true, like if you've seen and observed a bunch of things, and a bunch of people come in and tell you differently, that doesn't make them right and make your belief fraudulent. It's such a stupid thing to even say. Now, you might say Trump should have believed or Trump should have known that they were fraudulent, but it's not that he knew that. or an objective person would have listened to them or something like that. But maybe a better president or something, you could make that, but that's an opinion, and that's a discretionary decision to make. That's Trump's decision to make. Trump doesn't have to adopt the opinion of his advisors. They're not the president. So these advisors included this person and White House staff campaign audit conduit and Pence, the running mate. This relationship with Trump began before he worked it for him, and person 9 had known person 13, Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, so 13 must be Kushner, since Kushner was a child. He was one of several attorneys, and he became interested in learning more. Okay, that's great. They worked together a long time. No one cares. P9 told Trump the unvarnished truth about his campaign legal team and claims of fraud, and that they and the defendant were making. So this person repeatedly gave Trump his honest assessment that Rudy could not mount successful challenges. Oh, great. So a difference of opinion between lawyers. That means that if you get a second opinion of a lawyer, you have a fraudulent mindset or something like that. For instance, when Trump told person 9 that he was going to put Rudy in charge, but only pay him if he succeeded, person 9 told Trump that he would never have to pay him anything because he's not going to win. In response, Trump laughed and said, "We'll see. I think Rudy is onto something, right?" It's a difference of opinion. That's not criminal indicia. Thereafter, in the Oval Office meetings with Trump, Rudy and others, in which Rudy made speculative claims, this person told Rudy in front of Trump that Rudy would be unable to prove his allegations. In a separate private conversation, he also reiterated to Trump that Rudy would be unable to prove his false fraud allegations in court. And Trump responded, he said the details don't matter, right? Wow, that's another criminal. Well, they're going to question this and the numbers and all. And Trump said those don't matter, right? It's a court of law. We don't need to get into those details. We just have to show them these patterns are existing. So these numbers don't matter in here and there, right? It's trial litigation stuff that happens every day. And it's not crime. It's not criminal. Now, in the post-election period, this person also took on the role of updating Trump on a near daily basis of the unsuccessful efforts. So multiple lawyers who are investigating all of this are providing Trump with different opinions. He told Trump if the campaign took these claims to court that they're going to get slaughtered because the claims are all BS. He was privy in real time to the findings of the 2 expert consulting firms. And so his opinion was that all your claims have been debunked. For example, so-and-so told the defendant that Georgia's audit disproved claims that so-and-so had altered votes. Well, we know a lot more has come out about Georgia's votes at the time. So Georgia's audits are crap. We have seen it from Clay Parikh and others who have accessed the machines and show us how they work, keeping their keys open in publicly available decryption methods. You can access the devices. And Judge Amy Totenberg explained in her opinion that the system is so bad it's even beyond comprehension. We read through the full opinion here. So Trump was right. P9 was wrong. Georgia's a disaster. Fani Willis and Prosecutor Love are good indicia of that too. So Trump was actually more right than they were. Now, in the post-election time period, Pence, Trump's own running mate, who he had directed to assess the fraud allegations, told Trump he'd seen no evidence of outcome determinative fraud in the election. So Mike Pence and Bill Barr, they came into Trump's office with moving boxes. They had the U-Haul. They're like, well, hey, Trump, weirdest thing, I had Pence and Bill Barr come in with their moving boxes. We just left the fraud hearing. You're not going to believe it. No fraud. Right, Mike? Right, Mike? Bill Barr says. Oh, yeah, no fraud at all. No fraud at all. They have the moving boxes. They say, we got the U-Haul for you. Can we just pack you up and get you out of here? Trump says no. Now we know the CIA endorsed a letter that changed the outcome of the election by many estimates. A fraudulent act that no one looked into at the time. So Trump knew there was more fraud than they did, or had suspicions of it, as we all did. Now, this was in one of many conversations that Trump and Pence had. And they discussed their shared electoral interests. So Trump disagreed with Pence too. Again, his prerogative. Pence gradually and gently tried to convince Trump to accept the lawful results of the rigged election. even if it meant they lost. He's like, come on, man. Trump asked Pence to, quote, study up claims of voter fraud. Pence said, well, I think the conversation, I think it was broadly, it was just look at all of it, is what Trump told me. Let me know what you think. But he told me that the campaign was going to fight and was going to go to the court and make challenges. And then he just said, we're going to fight this and take a look at it. Let me know what you think. Pence said that he tried to encourage him as a friend, reminding him, Trump, you did great. You took a dying political party. You gave it a new lease on life. You're amazing. At November 11th meeting, Pence asked, when did this come to a head? He said a week after Thanksgiving or so. Now, in November 12th meeting, Pence said that campaign lawyers gave a sober view of the state election challenges. Pence said, here's a face-saving option, Trump. Don't concede, but recognize that the process is over. Okay, so you're going to leave. The process is over. Then November 23rd, Trump told Pence that Trump's private attorney was not optimistic about the election challenges. And at another private lunch, you see what Jack is doing, it's all private lunches, Pence encouraged Trump not to look at this as a loss. Just say, this is just an intermission. This was followed later in the day by a private discussion in the Oval. Trump asked Pence, what do you think we should do? Pence said, after we have exhausted every legal process in the courts and Congress, if we still came up short, you should take a bow. So, wow, even Mike Pence was saying, yeah, every legal process, every single court proceeding, investigate everything. And then if it doesn't work, take a bow. That's what Trump was doing. Discussions with Pence were also talking about Arizona and other things, but Trump disregarded this person and Pence in the same way he disregarded dozens of court decisions, and he disregarded all those who told him that he lost. Election officials released press releases. At one point, after Trump had begun spreading false claims, a White House staffer who was traveling with Trump overheard him tell family members that it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election, you still have to fight like hell. That's right. That's right. You do. You still do. All right. Even if you do lose, you still have to fight like hell. So you can see how you can read that. They're just reading that improperly. Like, hey man, we got a job to do, whether we win or lose. We're still the Trump family. We're still Trump. We're still Trumpers. So we still have to win or we still have to fight. Doesn't mean that you fight to hold power or something, right? Beyond, he left on the 20th, as we saw. But they still continued to fight even after they were out of the White House. So what's so complicated about that? But Trump and his co-conspirators also demonstrated, says Jack Smith, their deliberate disregard for the truth and their knowledge of falsity, which we still have not seen yet, right? We've not seen a statement from Trump that says, I know I've lost. I accept what you're telling me, but we're going to fight this anyways. Not one thing. In fact, it's been a bunch of people telling him what we now know is not accurate. And Trump has been steadfast this entire time. When they repeatedly change the numbers in their baseless fraud allegations from day to day. Now, at trial, the government will introduce several instances of this pattern in which Trump and his conspirators' lies were proved by the fact that they made up the numbers from whole cloth. One example was in Arizona. They said there were 36,000 non-citizens who voted, but then 5 days later, they changed that. And there was a lot of that, right? There was a lot of stuff that was being investigated, and there were lawsuits flying all over the country. We covered it here. It was madness because there were election deadlines and people were being very squirrely with the numbers and the results, and people were delaying. We were counting for days and days and days. So the numbers were changing because the numbers were changing. Ultimately, Trump's steady stream of disinfo, which is true now, in the post-election period culminated in the J6 speech. In the speech, Trump repeated the same lies about election fraud in the various states, and he used those lies to inflame and disrupt the certification proceeding. Then he targeted the various states. Shortly after the election, he began targeting the alternate electors: Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, saying he was reaching out to the election officials. And again, this is where it gets very repetitive. So we'll go through this relatively quickly because we spent a lot of time on this, but they were in various states. Remember, they came to Arizona, and on November 9th, 2 days after the news network said Biden had won, Trump called Ducey, and there were conversations with Ducey back and forth. Again, Trump never admits in these conversations that he knows that he lost anything. They say he tried to influence Ducey. For example, Rudy also tried to influence Ducey, talking about a certificate of ascertainment, formally declaring Biden's electors. Someone else got a phone call. Someone said, watching the Arizona hearings, and then Governor Ducey signed those papers, why bother voting for Republican if what you get is blank, blank, and blank? My state is corrupt, is what is being said. So Trump and other co-conspirators attempted to use false fraud claims to convince Arizona people, including Rusty Bowers, remember him, Arizona House of Representatives. But they didn't do anything. They didn't change anything. Then P18 released a public statement saying that he did not have the authority to use the legislature to reverse the results of the election. And then on X, Trump retweeted what they say is a false post and praised someone else, right? So someone else responded and said, yes, you can do this. It doesn't violate the law. So there's a battle over what can be done in Arizona, and Trump is retweeting some stuff. A month later, just 2 days before January 6th, co-conspirator 2, another of Trump's private attorneys, so it's either Ellis or Powell, called this person and urged this person one last time to use the legislature to decertify the election. This person said, we can't do that, and was undeterred. And so nothing happened. So in the post-election period, this person was harassed, probably Rusty Bowers. There was noise out there. People were yelling at him. Did you see anything in there about Trump knowingly pressuring him, knowing the election was fraud, was the opposite of what he claimed? No. Georgia. Remember this? Raffensperger. We're in Fannyland. He had early notice that his claims of fraud in Georgia were false, which nobody believes. We know what Georgia is. The whole county of Fulton is fraudulent. The defendant continued to press the claim anyways. 4 days later, Rudy orchestrated a presentation, showed up at the Georgia Senate. We remember that. We talked a lot about it. They claimed there were 10,000 dead voters or something. During the subcommittee hearing, the conspirators also sent in motion a dangerous lie about the State Farm Arena, which had that weird water main break, talking about suitcases of illegal ballots. Yeah. While the hearing was ongoing, Trump simultaneously amplified all this, saying, wow, publishing that on X. Then the State Farm Arena was disproven. They started suing everybody, and the claims were debunked. Even a U.S. senator called so-and-so told so-and-so that he had heard that they were whipping support to file amicus briefs. And we saw that, right? Remember, many of the AGs were filing a claim, and they tried to take it to the U.S. Supreme Court. This person tried to steer the call to an end. And there was a phone call. Trump raised various fraud claims, told state authorities. This person said, no, we investigated State Farm, and we'll check. And so there was a phone call there. Now, on the same day as Trump's call with this person, Trump's campaign staff said, well, the State Farm Arena claim is also unsupported, and emailed another one saying that they're not going to run campaign advertisements about any of this. But then Rudy further perpetuated the State Farm Arena claim, saying that some of the footage was a problem. He said, look, just watch the footage. There's a fraud right in front of people's eyes. And we know what happened in Georgia. Throughout the post-election period, Trump used Twitter to publicly attack the Georgia governor Kemp with particular aggression. In 35 days, Trump tweeted critically about this person and this person. Why won't Governor Kemp, the hapless governor of Georgia, use his emergency powers to overrule his loser secretary to do a match of signatures on envelopes? It'll be a goldmine of fraud. We'll win easily. Why are these Republicans saying no, right? That's all Trump asking, not to defraud an election, to match the signatures is what he's asking for. Legal. In the post-election period, Trump also made false claims in court about fraud in Georgia unsuccessfully. For example, in this case, a federal lawsuit, he signed a verification of fraud allegations that another attorney knew was inaccurate. Knew was inaccurate or was making a legal argument and referencing data that there's opinions about how it's assembled and accumulated, right? Everything in here is just inaccurate automatically. It's dishonest. It's not truthful. It's fraud. It's false. First, he told CC2 and another attorney because they couldn't verify the facts, and told the defendant that any lawyer that signed the complaint that the verification supported would get disbarred if you sign that. Co-conspirator 2 acknowledged this problem in an email, writing that at the time that since Trump signed a previous verification, he had been made aware that some of the allegations were inaccurate, signing a new affirmation that would not be accurate. But they say Trump did sign the verification and another attorney caused it to be filed. All right. So Trump's lawyers are then trying to figure out what data to put into the complaints that Trump is filing, which is all standard stuff as well. Had been made aware that some of the allegations has been inaccurate. So I think they're making the argument that Trump is knowingly signing false documents in his lawsuits that were later dismissed, and that is evidence of fraud. Now, on January 2nd, Raffensperger went on Fox News and said that various rumors of election fraud were false. Trump lost Georgia, and we know what happened in Georgia. So we fast forward through Georgia. There was a phone call. We don't have to agree. Trump said we filed several lawsuits, raised multiple claims, and each of them were refuted. So we'll fast forward through Georgia. Let me show you Michigan. Remember, Michigan's governor also signed a certificate of ascertainment. Same thing happened here. Trump initiated a meeting, RNC chairwoman. The defendant also asked this person to participate in the meeting. After P39 made contact, Trump reached out again, extended invitations. So he's on the phone with people. When Trump called these people to invite them to the White House, he did not provide the topic of the meeting, but he did ask about allegations of fraud in the election in Michigan. And Jack is going to say that's not his prerogative, right? He can't investigate that stuff. It's outside the scope. Now, the legislatures told him that they in the Michigan legislature were examining the allegations. Both these people assumed that Trump wanted to see them to discuss this, but they wanted to be firm that they're not going to change the outcome of the election. And they only wanted to talk about COVID when they got there. Now, over the course of the meeting, Trump dialed in this person, even though this person did not want to participate, and Rudy and this person was present for some. After some small talk, they raised various fraud claims, including Wayne County and Detroit. This person corrected Trump, told him he'd lost primarily because in two routinely Republican counties, he'd underperformed with educated females, they said. This person could tell by Trump's body language he was not happy to hear this. Notably, Trump only raised fraud claims that they affected his race, not for other offices in Michigan. Now, Rudy also participated after legislators assured Trump that they were looking into the fraud claims. Trump dialed into the meeting and said, tell them what's going on, then launched into fraud. So are you going to file a lawsuit? And then there were other public statements where people said that they had not been made aware of any fraud that was around. So same thing happened in Michigan. They filed lawsuits. Those efforts failed. Same thing happened in Nevada. Same type of situation here. They filed a lawsuit here. We also covered Nevada. Spoke with the RNC chief counsel, saying we're not believing the claims about dead voters. The RNC chief was even calling, saying that there's not enough here. This contest has little chance of succeeding, but Trump retweeted anyways, calling it big news. Says, hey, they're agreeing to hear it. So Trump says, good news. We've got at least some progress in this lawsuit, even though the RNC says it's probably going to die, and it ultimately did. It was ultimately rejected by the courts. Same thing. We're now into December. Then Nevada finally releases a facts versus myths. And after examining the records, the case was discounted due to a lack of evidence. And so the legal efforts failed there. Same thing in Pennsylvania. 2 days after the election on November 6th, Trump called this person the chairwoman man of the Republican Party, entity responsible for Republicans. This person had a prior relationship with Trump, including having represented him in litigation, asked him about fraud. Consistent with the campaign staff, this person said it wasn't fraud. It was that there were roughly 1.75 million mail-in ballots still being counted, which were expected to be 80% for Biden. You see that? Like, that is the fraud. Roughly 1.75 million mail-in ballots. No, there's no fraud. Other than what's in the box that we're about to count. Over the following months, Trump spread false claims about fraud in Pennsylvania anyways. In early November, in a campaign meeting, when Trump suggested that more people in Pennsylvania voted, someone else corrected him. Then someone else at the same time, this person appeared on television and said there's no widespread fraud. A guy named so-and-so is being used big time by the fake news, he says. We refuse to look at a mountain of corruption and dishonesty and more. Now, on Trump's behalf, Rudy, too, spread patently false claims about Pennsylvania, held an unofficial hearing in some hotel. He falsely stated that Pennsylvania issued 1.8 million absentee ballots and received 2.5 million in return, rooted in obvious errors, they said. Likewise, other people said it was BS, and someone explained the error. But then there were other tweets. Other people were posting about it. When Rudy learned of the tweet, talked about a threatening voicemail. I need an explanation for why you said that. On December 3rd, 4 Republicans of Pennsylvania issued a public letter saying we lack the authority to overturn the public vote, and so they didn't do anything there in Pennsylvania either. Same story in Wisconsin. November 29th, a recount of Trump's campaign had confirmed that Biden won in Wisconsin. They just counted the same fake votes. In response, the defendant issued a series of tweets attacking this person, the Wisconsin Supreme Court justice, who had written the majority opinion rejecting the campaign's lawsuit. And so things failed in Michigan. Now we're past the states. Throughout the post-election period, Trump and co-conspirators repeatedly made claims about the voting machines, about how they're problematic. In November, in a tweet announcing that Rudy was going to be leading this, they talked about voting machine claims. And others said there should be suits in Georgia and Pennsylvania that redo the election. Then we had CISA. Remember him? Others held a press campaign conference, Rudy and others. They made false claims about the integrity of the machines. Then Fox News personality, person 51, probably Tucker, stated, most likely about Sidney Powell, she has never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry, told us to stop contacting her. When we checked with her, people in positions of authority, they told us that Sidney never given them any evidence either. So then Trump saw his private attorney's press conference and the discussion of Sidney, and he acknowledged to this person that Sidney had appeared unhinged in a press conference. Then they were on speakerphone. Trump placed the call on mute and mocked and laughed and called some of the claims crazy and made a reference to a science fiction series called Star Trek. At the same time, this person told Trump that these claims were unreliable and should not be included in the lawsuits. And Trump agreed. He had not seen anything to substantiate those claims. Wow. Wait a minute. So Trump is actually involved in some of so they're actually like having legal conversations about this. Trump says, no, I think that is a valid claim. That's not a valid claim. So he's pursuing only the valid stuff. You see what that means? Trump is not pursuing fraudulent claims by Jack's own admissions. In the same period, when this person told Trump that these claims were crazy and should not be included, Trump agreed. Those claims are crazy. I have not seen anything to substantiate those, and they're out. Okay, great. So that means that Trump is not pursuing fraudulent claims. If Trump wanted to pursue fraudulent claims, wouldn't he throw that one in there too? I don't care. What Jack wants this sentence to say is Trump said, the defendant said, I don't care. Put it in anyways. On November 22nd, notwithstanding Trump's tweet from 8 days prior, then Sydney, Trump issued a statement distancing the campaign from Sydney. He said she's not on the Trump legal team here. She's not a lawyer for Trump in any personal capacity. And we all saw that. We're like, uh-oh. Now, nonetheless, Trump continued to support and publicize the claims, promoting the lawsuit, breaking news. She was all over the place, hanging out with Lou Dobbs a bunch. Then Chris Krebs, P50, was no longer a CISA director. He retired so he could go talk garbage on 60 Minutes and write books or whatever he needed to do next. Krebs stated he's confident the election was secure and there was no manipulation of the vote on the machine count side. Trump obviously had a different opinion. Then Chris Krebs was subjected to death threats, which are illegal. Another Georgia election official said someone's going to get killed. On December 1st, Attorney General Redacted stated publicly, Barr, that the DOJ had not seen any evidence of fraud sufficient to change the election results. And he came in there with his moving boxes for Trump. With respect to voting machines, he said there's been one assertion that would be systemic fraud. And DHS and DOJ have looked into that. And so far, we haven't seen anything to substantiate it. And the Justice Department wrote, with all due respect to the Attorney General, there hasn't been any semblance of a DOJ investigation. His opinion appears to be without any knowledge or any investigation of the irregularities or the systemic fraud. In mid-December, Trump spoke with the RNC chairwoman and asked her to publicize this about Antrim County, Michigan. But she refused, telling Trump she'd already discussed the report with the speaker and the report's inaccurate. Conveyed to Trump that the exact assessment was that the report was effing nuts. On January 2nd, during Trump's call with Raffensperger, he said, I don't believe that you're really questioning the machines because we did a hand retally, a 100% retally of all the ballots and compared them to the machines, and they're virtually the same result. Then we did the recount and got virtually the same result. So I guess we could probably take that off the table. In response, Trump falsely claimed, in other states, we think we found tremendous corruption with the machines, but we'll have to see. He says, we think we found it, right? They're investigating it. Okay. Now, at the Ellipse, Trump and co-conspirators who spoke at the rally continued to make unsubstantiated claims, talking about votes being changed by algorithms. This person continued the false attack. We know because we caught it live last time in real time how the machines contributed to that fraud. CC2 must be Ellis. In his own speech, Trump again raised the false specter of the highly troubling matter of this and lied about machines flipping votes to an astronomical and astounding error rate on the machine's ballot scanning. So then Trump organized the false electors. Then they developed a new plan after this was going bad. Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, they wanted to send people in there to question the certification. The plan's arc was reflected in a series of memoranda and an attorney who volunteered to help the campaign. Maybe Tom Fitton. But this course of action, which this person Wisconsin memorandum was a contingency plan targeting a bunch of states. Trump personally set the fraudulent elector plan into motion, and we would not call this fraudulent. You'd call it alternative, just like they did in the Hawaii state with Kennedy. I think it was the 60 election. By December 5th, Trump was starting to think about Congress's role in the election process because that's what everybody does. For the first time, he mentioned to Pence the possibility of challenging the election in the House of Representatives. Pence told Trump that Georgia was investigating their race, but then they wrote it down on paper. Trump and CC2 called RNC chairwoman out of the blue. This person did not know Ellis and was introduced to them saying that he was a professor and lawyer, or maybe CC2. It's not Ellis then. CC2 was a primary speaker during the conversation. They wanted the campaign to assemble electors and then deliver their ballots to Congress. When the call ended, Blank immediately called P3, One of the deputy campaign managers says, we need to have someone coordinating this. I have lawyers assigned on each state. And the purpose of this is not to execute a fraudulent elector plan. It's to anchor in your objection, right? You have to lodge your objection in order for it to count and to be a part of the record. So you submit your alternate electors under that same thesis. Now, on December 8th, co-conspirator 5 spoke on the phone with this person, a private attorney. Following the call, there was another conversation. I just talked to a gentleman who did that memo. His idea is basically that all of us, Georgia, Arizona, we have our electors send in their votes, even though the votes aren't legal under federal law because they're not signed by the governor, so that members of Congress can fight about whether they should be counted or not. They could potentially argue that they're not bound by federal law because they're Congress and they make the law. Kind of wild, creative, happy to discuss it. So some email from other people discussing the theory, developing a theory. On December 9th, this other person contacted so-and-so with a request from this, saying the campaign employees were already assisting in the effort and more direction was being developed. The day before the defendant's electors were scheduled to meet and sign the fraudulent certificates, Trump asked campaign advisor P4 for an update on the plan. P4 discussed these developments in a text thread. I'll call as soon as we hear more from the boss. Here's the thing. The way this has morphed, it's a crazy play, so I know who wants to put their name on it. I don't know who wants to put their name on it. Then they talk about another conference call, and this person, CC1, was convening these people and then called them a Star Wars bar, a motley assortment of characters. You know, the Star Wars bar. Thereafter, the text participants agreed that no message could go out under their names because they can't stand by this. In the midst of these text messages, these people had a 19-minute phone call with the defendant. So they're talking about a plan that ultimately doesn't go anywhere. In practice, right, this sounds like it's all just discussion stuff. It's in contemplation of legal action. Now, in practice, so what actually happened now that they've talked about it? The fraudulent elector plan played out somewhat differently in each state. In general, the co-conspirators deceived the electors' nominees in the same way that they deceived this person by falsely claiming the votes would only be used if ongoing litigation were resolved in Trump's favor. A select few of the agents, however, had insight into the ultimate plan for J6. In several states, Trump was able to get people to participate. Former U.S. Representative and U.S. Attorney opted out of the plan, told the party chair that he would not participate because this could be illegal. When electors like this person declined, the conspirators and agents recruited substitutes who went along with the plan. Other electors who participated were only a contingency, participated in only a contingent manner. Now, in Pennsylvania, there was also concerns about the proprieties of the plan and text messages between these people. They were trying to figure this out. Someone responded, have someone who knows him call him, tell him to stop. Pennsylvania's squishy. So it's just conversations between Rudy and many people about alternate electors. They're not going to participate? Good. We need good substitutes. Then Trump tweeted this on December 13th. Swing states that have found massive voter fraud, which is all of them, cannot legally certify these votes as complete and correct without committing a severely punishable crime, says Trump. Everybody knows that dead people, below-age people, illegal immigrants, fake signatures, prisoners, many other voted illegally, machine glitches, aka fraud, ballot harvesting, non-resident voters, fake ballots, and more. Votes for pay, roughed up Republican poll watchers, which we all saw. Sometimes even more votes than people voting took place in Detroit, Philadelphia, and elsewhere. In all swing states, there are far more votes than are necessary to win the state. Therefore, votes cannot be certified. This election is under protest. Now, ultimately, the Pennsylvania electors use conditional language, and when possible, they try to get them to appear to be in compliance with the law. Then on December 14th, the date that duly appointed electors across the country met, and when Trump's fraudulent electors in 7 states mimicked them, this person followed up with Trump, saying the message is in front of him. At the same time, Trump's fraudulent electors were preparing to gather and cast their votes. They were trying to figure out how to deal with it on January 6th. Then this person traveled to Washington with another group of private attorneys. During the encounter, Trump complained about Wisconsin and the Supreme Court judge. As late as early January, conspirators attempted to keep the full nature of this plan secret, saying, "Careful with your text on text group. No reason to text about electors to anyone but us two." Okay, they said. Then Trump tried to get Pence, right? Once the electors were going to be assembling the votes from the states and sending them to Washington, then Trump had to go and get Pence to accept them. As Trump's various attempts to target the states failed and the January 6th certification approached, Trump and their co-conspirators turned their attention to Pence in service of a new plan. They lied to Pence, telling him that there was substantial election fraud and concealing their orchestration of it with Pence. Trump first turned his sights towards January 6th on December 19th, posting something on Twitter, a report falsely alleging fraud. He said, "Big protest on January 6th, be there, will be wild." When this person learned about the tweet, he sent a link to it to another Wisconsin attorney. "Wow, based 3 days ago, I think we have a unique understanding of this." And later, Trump called Pence and told him of the plans for J6, said it's going to be a big day, would be good to have a lot of supporters in town. Now, Trump and his co-conspirators recognized that Pence, by virtue of his ministerial role, which wasn't really ministerial since they changed it all and now limited it a lot more, would be a key part of their plan to obstruct the certification proceeding. All right. Now, on December 23rd, in a memo, outlined a plan for Pence to gavel in Trump as the winner by saying 7 states have transmitted dual slates of electors, and that because of ongoing disputes, there are no electors that can be deemed validly appointed in those states. Right? So that's the plan. Now, CC2 emphasized concealment, writing, "The main thing here was that Pence act without asking for permission from Congress." So the memo stood in stark contrast to concessions from this co-conspirator he had already previously made about Pence's authority. 2 months earlier, on October 10th, he had written to a colleague that neither the Constitution nor the ECA provided Pence the ability to do that. And we read it too, and that was our interpretation of it. But we also read it and said you could interpret it the other way. And just 1 day earlier, on December 22nd, when asked by other private attorneys, this person recommended the complaint not be filed. Right? So we're not going to go that direction, because the risk of a court ruling that Pence had no authority to do this is high, right? So it's just a legal thesis. It's a legal plan. It's a possibility. It's a memo. This happens all the time. Can we do this? Can we file this? No, not a good idea. We can't go that far. Okay, we're not. On the evening of December 23rd, after 1, 2, and 3, after they planned with Trump, they publicly retweeted a document called Operation Pence Card, where Pence would block the certification of what they say were legitimate electoral votes. We would say these are electorally usurped votes. These were votes that came in because the Secretary of States in some states made private agreements with other third parties to change the processing of the election. The following day, December 24th, Trump called this person. They spoke for 40 minutes. Then they talked about Pence with an unlimited filibuster. Is Pence even going to be on board with this? Someone said. They said, let's keep this off text for now. Let me talk to you on the phone about this. From that point on, they plotted to manipulate Pence. They began to directly and repeatedly pressure Pence. On December 25th, when Pence called Trump to wish him a Merry Christmas, Trump raised the certification issue. He says, well, it'd be a lot merrier Christmas, Pence, if you just not certify the election. Bah humbug, says Trump. Pence emphatically responded, I don't think I have the authority to change the outcome, Mr. President. The next day, Trump tweeted, never give up. See you on January 6th. And it's time for Mike Pence to step up to fight for the presidency like the Democrats would do if they had actually won. Said the proof is irrefutable. Massive late night mail-in ballot dropping, stuffing the ballot boxes on video, double voters, dead voters. and more. It's a problem. So on December 28th, and these people exchanged text messages, which was about a lawsuit about Pence. Does Pence have the right to even publicly reject these things? Who knows? When Pence explained, as he had before, that he did not believe he had the power to do this, Trump told him hundreds of thousands of people are going to hate your guts if you don't do it, and people are going to think you're stupid. It turned out Trump was right. And berated him pointedly. Trump said, apparently, you're too honest to Pence. Immediately before the call, Trump had spoken to Rudy, and late that afternoon, Trump had also spoken with this person and that person as well. Within hours of the call with Pence, Trump reminded supporters to go to Washington. Then January 2nd, lawyers were there. They appeared on this podcast. When P1 asked whether the J6 certification, is that Bannon? Is P1 Bannon? Responded that a lot of that depends on the courage and the spine of the individuals involved, is what CC2 said. The defendant spoke with CC1 shortly after his appearance on the podcast. That afternoon, CC6 worked to arrange a meeting among the defendant and Pence in order to enlist Pence in his role. Then Trump called Pence, said, hey, I talked to Secretary, state legislatures, members of Congress, Raffensperger. On the call with Pence, Trump said he had learned that a U.S. senator was going to propose a 10-day delay and told Pence, you make the decision and delay the count for 10 days. And Cruz came out and did start that process. The defendant then referred Pence to CC2 for the first time and told him to meet with him. On January 3rd, Trump again told Pence the certification is proceeding. Pence had the absolute right to reject the votes. Trump talking about the fraud. We know what happened. The meeting among the defendant, Pence, and the Pence staffers began around 4:45. During the meeting, Trump asked this person to explain the plan to Pence. This person noted two options. One, Pence could unilaterally decide objections to electors, or alternatively, Pence could send the elector slates to the targeted states' legislatures to determine which electors' votes could be counted, right? If there was a fraud in a state, the governor is signing off on election, but the legislature might feel like they got usurped. So send it back to them, since the Constitution gives them the raw source of the power to govern the elections that was usurped by governors and secretaries of states under COVID. In Trump's presence, in response to Pence's questioning, this person admitted the ECA forbade what he proposed to do and that no one had tested this new plan to send this back to the states for review. Nonetheless, Trump repeatedly expressed a preference to reject the elector slates. Now, again, that's open for interpretation, right? Is the opposing legal perspective. And what came about is they passed new laws to tighten all of this up because it wasn't as clear as they say it is, as Jack Smith proposes here. Now, throughout that meeting, Trump repeated his knowingly false claims, which again, I don't think he ever knew or admitted that he knew they were false, to Pence. Pence's 5 pages of contemporaneous notes from the meeting said that Trump said, when there's fraud, the rules get changed. Bottom line, won every state by hundreds of thousands of votes. This whole thing is up to Mike Pence. It has to do with you. You can be bold, right to do whatever you want to do. The meeting concluded with Pence firmly and clearly saying, I'm not seeing this argument working. Nevertheless, Trump requested that Pence staff meet again. Pence agreed. Now, the conspirators were undeterred. Immediately after they left, they went at a hotel. Over the next days that followed, these conspirators strategized about how they could influence Pence, including talking about it on a podcast. Now, for his part, after the meeting, Trump traveled to Georgia, talked to senators. During the speech, promoted many of the same falsehoods, said a bunch of stuff. The next morning, on January 5th, Trump spoke with another person. Less than 2 hours later on his podcast, it's got to be Bannon, Bannon said in anticipation of the J6 proceeding, he said, all hell's going to break loose tomorrow. On the morning of J5, CC2 participated in a federal court hearing in Trump versus Kemp, the Georgia lawsuit, in which Trump had signed a false verification earlier from the filing, I guess, in court, which I think is what he's being charged with by Fannie. CC2, on Trump's behalf, asked the federal court to decertify the election. Immediately after that, another CC2 went to a meeting that Trump had requested with Pence's staff, advocated that Pence simply reject Biden's electors. This was contrary to his primary recommendation to send it back to the legislature. And they argued about what the Supreme Court would do if they did that plan. And apparently, having failed to enlist this person in the conspiracy, this person said that the team was going to be really disappointed. The team was, in fact, disappointed. After this person updated Rudy on the meeting, CC6 confirmed to P1 that the Pence lawyer, that is P58, was, quote, totally against us, prompting Bannon, presumably, to respond, F his lawyer, F Pence's lawyer. That same day, CC2 got an email confirming what he already had admitted to P58. No chamber of any legislature was requesting that the electoral votes get returned. So then this person who had traveled to Washington got duplicates of the fraudulent certificates and flew them to Washington at private expense, hand delivered them, and they're saying Trump is orchestrating all of that. Now, Trump did not leave the pressure campaign to his co-conspirators. He redoubled his own efforts. On January 5th, he tweeted some stuff about Mike Pence, bunch of tweets, and told Pence, you have the power to decertify all this. Trump continued his pressure campaign even into that evening. Then he caused the riot. Now we're finally at January 6th. Trump continued his intense pressure campaign against Pence on January 6th. At 1 a.m., he said, if Pence comes through for us, we're going to win the presidency. Mike can send it back. All Mike Pence has to do is send it back. Mike, time for extreme courage. Later that morning, this person worked for another attorney for Trump, contacted other people. When one of the senators contacted a Pence staffer by text message to arrange for the delivery for the alternate electors, Pence's staffer rejected them. At 11:15, shortly before traveling to the Ellipse, Trump called Pence one last time. Pence again refused. Told Trump that he intended to make a statement that he lacked the authority to do what Trump wanted to do. Trump got mad, incensed. He decided to reinsert into his campaign remarks targeting Pence on J6 at the Capitol. And Trump set into motion the last plan in furtherance of his conspiracies. If Pence didn't do what he wanted to do, Trump was going to stop the certification of Biden. And so that's what happened. On January 6th, Trump sent to the Capitol a crowd of angry supporters, whom Trump had called to the city, inundated them with false claims, and induced Pence not to certify. Now, at the Ellipse campaign rally, these people spoke just before Trump. They soaked the air in conspiracies. And this person falsely claimed that legislatures in 5 states were begging to have their ballots returned, but they didn't. Someone told the crowd, let's have trial by combat. Pence must send these votes back. Then Trump took the stage. He knew that he had only one last hope to prevent Biden's certification, the large crowd standing in front of him. So for more than an hour, he gave a speech. He told the crowd the same stuff he's been telling them for months. 36,000 ballots in Arizona, 10,000 people in Georgia, and more. He also lied to his rally supporters. For instance, he said, by the way, Pennsylvania has now seen all this. They didn't even know because it was so quick. They had a vote, they voted, but we've seen it all. Mike Pence has to send it back. He gave his supporters false hope, told Pence, do it or I'm going to be disappointed in you, said that we're not going to let that happen. You have to fight. We have to take back our country. The overall impact of the speech was to fuel the crowd's anger. He told his supporters, we're not going to let them silence your voices. Fight for Trump, he said. Members of the crowd then started to shout, invade the Capitol building, take the Capitol. Yeah, it was guys like Ray Epps who appeared via teleconference for their misdemeanor plea deal. Into the Capitol, into the Capitol. Thousands of supporters of Trump marched to the Capitol. Minutes earlier, Pence was there. Outside the Capitol, a mass of people, including an unknown, undisclosed number of federal agents or human sources, including those, all traveled there. A large portion of the crowd got rowdy. At 1:30, Trump settled into the dining room of the Oval Office, was looking at Twitter on his phone, Fox News on TV. At 2:13, people broke in. Within minutes, staffers fled the Senate chamber. Rioters were there, and the rioters were shouting at officers. Where are they? Where are the officers? You're traitors, blah, blah, blah. Fox News' coverage of the events came down. At 2:42, Trump was alone in the dining room, issued a tweet attacking Pence. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what he needed to do. 1 minute later, Secret Service was forced to evacuate Pence. People were screaming, "Traitor Pence, hang Mike Pence." Rioters again, many bearing pro-Trump paraphernalia. We've got questions if those were federal agents. Did any federal agents wear a MAGA hat that day? Anyone? Stood there, and some of the worst violence took place there. Rioters forced their way in. This guy, I feared for my life. We're all going to die. In the years after January 6th, Trump called J6ers patriots and hostages, which they are. On the evening, definitely the nonviolent ones, right? We don't condone the violence, but there were many good people there who were waved into the building and are now being treated like monsters and criminals, and they're not. On the evening of January 6th, the defendant and CC1 attempted to exploit the violence. In a voicemail intended for one senator, Rudy said, "I'm calling you. I want to discuss how they're trying to rush this hearing and how you guys can help." Although the attack on the Capitol delayed the certification for 6 hours, okay, 6, not 4.5, my bad, devastating. The House and the Senate resumed at 11:35 the same night, but the conspirators were not done. Someone else wrote that the siege is because you and your boss did not do what was necessary. Why don't you adjourn this for 10 days so we can get to the bottom of this? But they didn't. At 3:41 a.m., they announced the results. Biden was our president in a rigged election. So they give us some legal framework, right? And that's the bulk of the facts. That's the bulk of the new facts. And it's pretty light. I mean, again, the question that we're asking ourselves predominantly for this motion is, what bucket are we in? And if Trump is investigating fraud as the chief executive of the country, is he allowed to do what he did? Is he allowed to make these phone calls and pursue rooting out fraudulent behavior? So now we get into some legal application. So what's the legal application here? And we're on page 85 of 165. Now, in Trump, the Supreme Court said that former presidents are immune from core official acts. A presumption of rebuttable immunity is available, and there's no immunity for unofficial acts. In Trump, they said we have to do an analysis on this. And so we're applying all of those principles to the original indictment. The question here is whether Trump can carry his burden to show that these acts were official and subject to presumptive immunity. Official immunity includes acts taken within the outer perimeter, and they're covered as long as it's not so manifestly or palpably beyond the president's authority. But now we're asking about the distinction between candidates and presidents. In Blossingame, another case, there is a bigger distinction: unofficial versus official act immunity. And so these are the rules that they're saying apply. Now, none of the evidence in this case is protected by presidential immunity. This is Jack Smith writing. Now, at its core, Trump's scheme was a private one. He used private actors. We wrote a new indictment, and nothing that we're doing here is going to pose a danger of intrusion onto Trump. They're giving us some details. First, Pence and his interactions with Trump was official. The only conduct that was alleged to be official was Trump's attempts to talk to Pence. The Supreme Court stated that whenever the president and the vice president discuss their official responsibilities, that's official conduct. And further explained that Pence's role in the certification was constitutional and it was statutory. And so Trump is at least presumptively immune for that conduct, that conversation with Pence. Now, accordingly, unlike all of the other determinations, we can skip to the second step, whether we can rebut the presumption here of immunity. And they say they can. As described below, we're going to introduce a bunch of evidence between Trump and Pence that they did not discuss Pence's official responsibilities as the president of the Senate, which they just told us they did. I mean, this whole thing was about that. Instead, acted in their private capacities as running mates. They were like this whole first half of this filing. I mean, a huge portion of it was literally talking about Pence's official responsibilities and how he is going to do them. So they say they were unofficial. They say his interactions with Pence as president were official, but the rebuttable presumption of immunity is overcome. Oh, so they do agree. Okay, so we start that it is immune, but not immune enough. Why? They say the executive branch has no authority or function to choose the next president. The Constitution says how this works. Congress may determine electors on a day and time. Constitution provides no role for the executive branch. No, I know, but they do provide the executive branch to stop fraud. And that's what Trump was pursuing. Executive power is vested in a president, so they're trying to give us a separation of powers argument here. All right. Some of these precautions are reflected in the design of the Electoral College itself. The Constitution structure further reflects the framers' considered choice in excluding the incumbent president from playing a role in choosing the next president, and delegates this to legislatures. Now, the defendant's charged conduct contravenes all this. He sought to encroach on powers that go to other branches. History confirms that presidents have never understood their wide-ranging duties to go and collect and count and verify the results of the presidential election, which is not what Trump was doing. He was not collecting, counting, and certifying the results. He was investigating a fraud. They give us some Lincoln stuff here. When it comes to certification of this proceeding, the VP's role is ministerial. So Pence himself explained, I don't even have any role in this. So in other words, if they don't have a specific role, then all of this is not official. Because the role is ministerial, it's difficult to imagine how a president could try to influence it. So he had no ability to do that. And so lastly, Trump regularly included other private actors, his attorneys and other co-conspirators, and so that made it not official. The phone call to Pence and more. Now, these were as running mates. Anything's as running mates, okay? For example, Pence tried to encourage the defendant as a friend, is what he said. Hey, man, recognize this process is over. They were being frank. They were being friends. And so that clearly makes it unofficial. Also, these one-on-one actions were unofficial with P58. This person came, participated in a meeting, and he targeted people at various states as a candidate, not as a president. At trial, the government is going to introduce evidence that Trump contacted state officials as a candidate. Attorney General of Georgia, Raffensperger, and others talked to Nevada, New Mexico, talked to Democrats. He also called Arizona Ducey, saying there was fraud there, saying he was trying to put pressure on these people. On other occasions, this person reached out to so-and-so, but Ducey declined to take the calls. These were all unofficial. Trump engaged in his capacity as a candidate in an attempt to list support for reinstalling him as president. Same thing in Michigan, right? It's almost a rehash of it's the same pattern. So we're going back through the states again. Trump brought up election fraud claims to some of those people there, talked about COVID, and encouraged them to support him. There was another, obviously, call with this person they mentioned in the superseding indictment. That was unofficial, they say. And so there's a lot of unofficial conduct in here that they're alleging. The question is, can you bundle all of that up? And then is that sufficient to bring the claims in the indictment? And so you see, he also undertook to talk to this person. So this call, unofficial. So now it's like they're going through and identifying the specific conduct. This call was unofficial. and they're explaining all the specific evidence. At one point, this person interjected, says, can we find a path forward that's less litigious? The defendant's lead counsel in the lawsuit said, can we sit down? So Trump's call to this was purely private. And it's a call to Fulton County talking about the case there. So even if Trump contacts with state officials were official, which they're kind of admitting, the government can rebut that. So wait, can the president not talk to state people? Is that unofficial? Although the Supreme Court did not resolve this, they say that lying and pressuring state officials does not intrude on the executive branch. So we can deem it to be something that is not immune. Organizing fraudulent electors was unofficial. They say he had no right to do that. He had two relevant contacts where these people, his lawyers, were doing this. So this was all private contact and conduct. All right, so we see what the pattern is here. Even if it were official, the government could rebut it. So that same pattern is going to happen again. Trump's public speeches and tweets were unofficial, which is a ridiculous one because he used his X account for public business all the time. He made a number of speeches. They say a lot of those speeches were unofficial. He was giving speeches in Dalton, Georgia specifically. That is unofficial. We're going to win big tomorrow. That was like a candidate. Here's more. The ellipse speech. At the ellipse speech, it was planned to take place at Freedom Plaza. The organizers were almost exclusively private individuals. It was funded by a private donation by this grocery store woman. The private funding is a strong indicator that it was not official. For weeks leading up to the event, Trump promoted it on Twitter as well. Trump's White House employees understood the rally and the speech to be private, so they say. Consistent with the Hatch Act, they said, reminder, this is a political event today. And officials at the White House said that it was a political event. Save America rally also indicates it was private, right? So they're just showing you that the actual speech was private. Tellingly, the significant similarities with the Dalton speech also confirm it was private. So who funded the speech? Trump said a lot of the same things at two different locations in Michigan. These are all the claims that they say he made. He also was focused on his reelection. So they're comparing the J6 speech to another campaign speech, which is clearly a campaign speech. But a J6 speech was about J6, not about the campaign. The campaign was over. Mostly, right? The election. Finally, the defendant repeatedly aimed accusations at Biden, the candidate. Now, one of the tools that he uses is his X account. As an initial matter, he sent them from @RealDonaldTrump, used it a lot. Now, during his presidential term, they admit he sometimes used the account for official business, including COVID and more. But the Supreme Court said we have to look at each post by post, tweet by tweet analysis. And so they're going to go through the different tweets. Of the more than 1,200 tweets, some of them were official, some of them were not. A review of these shows a contrast. The White House versus the Trump account, 74 tweets from POTUS were different. And so they're going to analyze all his tweets now. Tweets as a candidate that cast doubt on election integrity or on the integrity of the election, they'll say are not official. Tweets about fraud, not official is what they'll say. Attacking those for speaking the truth, talking on 60 Minutes and more. So the pattern continues. We're going to fast forward through a lot of this, going through all of his tweets. And here, Wisconsin, Trump falsely claimed about the Wisconsin person, tweets about traveling to DC. So it's a whole thing about his tweets. Oh my gosh. The private campaign and the nature of the tweets shows this was private conduct and not immune. More tweets. All right, the rest of this is tweets. So it's a tweet motion. Got it. All right, so we're fast forwarding, saying that he has an argument that some of the tweets were addressing matters of public safety when he was saying go home and go home in peace, right? Go home peacefully. Likewise, in the 417 message, Trump, while still focused on the election loss, asked rioters to evacuate. So is that official or not? So the tweet was also focused on Pence. So how do we categorize that? Trump knew his advisors were urging him to do this. And so consider some of those to be not immune. So that we're literally talking about the evidence that they're going to try to admit at trial. They say all Trump's interactions at issue were unofficial, stuff with his staffer, his campaign, and more, all unofficial. And we're getting to the tail end of this document, so we'll just continue on. As context, the court should consider the relationship with Trump, his role in the White House, his interactions with the campaign. This person was not acting in any official capacity. Trump talked to these people about win-loss scenarios. Several days after the election, this person went to the campaign headquarters, so it's a lot of campaign stuff. Trump heard and mentioned to this person various fraud allegations, similarly to other outside attorneys. Overall, this person was a conduit and led a bunch of efforts. Other contracts. Throughout these conversations, this person could be understood, even if this person could have been understood to be acting in an official capacity, which he was not, was still acting, Trump was still acting in a private capacity in working with this person on the other end. Person 45 was also an assistant, volunteered for the campaign. Government is going to elicit from this witness at trial that he was the only person other than Trump with the ability to post on Trump's X account, and that he sent tweets only at Trump's express direction. And said Trump was very active, paid attention to his followers, which is more indicia that Trump knew about the fraud that even the media wasn't reporting. P7, another assistant. P7 testified about COVID's effects on the election. In all of these interactions, Trump was interacting with this person as a candidate, not as a president. And so any materials elicited from this person should be considered not immune. Trump told his wife, daughter, and son-in-law, it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election. You still have to fight like hell. This statement is plainly private. And so Trump should have this come in against him. So fast forwarding to the end of this, they say the government intends to introduce at trial evidence to prove Trump's knowledge and intent. These include public statements by federal officials that the defendant did not direct to be made, specifically public statements, evidence that Trump was viewing Twitter and watching TV, and Trump's post-administration statements. None of this evidence will involve testimony from Trump's executive branch about his official actions. So they're going to use testimony from people about what Trump was doing during the workday, right? He was reviewing Twitter, like observations of Trump in the White House, which seems like official conduct. And so, as we wrap up Jack's motion, on November, some more people want to come in as evidence. Trump's use of Twitter should come in as evidence. They say forensic evidence from Trump's iPhone and observations by witnesses. So they seized Trump's phone and they imaged it. Testifying about unofficial acts will establish that upon his return from the ellipse, throughout the afternoon, he sat in the dining room where he used his phone to review Twitter and watch TV, which was turned on and displaying the news. As explained in the government's expert notice, an FBI computer analysis response team can testify as to the news and social media applications downloaded on his phone, and they can describe the activity occurring on the phone throughout the afternoon of J6, so they can just see who's scrolling. The phone activity logs show that Trump was using his phone, in particular using X, consistently throughout the day after he returned from the speech. In addition, these people, each of whom described here, otherwise expect to testify about Trump's unofficial acts and offer the objective observation, it's not objective, it's their opinion, that during J6, the television where he spent the day was on and tuned into the news programs that were covering in real time what was happening. In turn, the government will introduce the authenticated coverage of what Fox was playing in real time, and that he sat there and watched it, which I don't know, it's relevant to his knowledge of the tweet, which was unofficial. So none of this involves testimony about an act by the defendant at all. And so even though it's in the White House, it's not official. The government will not elicit testimony from staffers about official deliberations, reactions, or anything. They're just observations. And so even if this evidence were official, they say the government could rebut anything And so in conclusion, the government prosecutors write in their massive election smear, based on a fact-bound analysis for the reasons explained above, this court should determine that the conduct described here is not subject to immunity, so we can talk about it and use it against Trump. As part of this determination, the court should specify 4 determinations and do so in one order. 1, that the government has rebutted the presumption of immunity about Mike Pence, so we can talk about Trump and Pence, and that the remaining conduct was not official. And in the alternative, the government has rebutted any presumptive immunity for stuff that is official. Like it's official, but we're still going to find you do not have immunity because it's not going to harm the presidency. The government requests alternative rulings regarding rebuttal for all conduct the court finds to be unofficial, to buttress this court's records, to ensure the appellate review, and to minimize the risk of successive rounds of appeal. So based on the following, we want the court to specify that Trump is subject to trial on the second indictment, that the government is not prohibited at trial from using any of this evidence, and we should move this case forward. Signed by the highlighter gal, Molly Gaston, and joined by Thomas Wyndham. Jack Smith, who's not even a real boy, is not on the signing line. And they're not even referencing the DOJ down here. Just special assistant, senior assistant to special counsels. All right. So 165 pages filled with a lot of garbage, trying to show that Trump is in this category of non-immune conduct, trying to show that he was engaged in a bunch of non-official conduct, as though phone calls to election officials and investigations into widespread fraud are not anything the executive branch should care about. Trump should have listened to the experts. The same experts who told us, they're so smart about everything. Same experts who told us 15 days to slow the spread. Just follow their instructions. Everything will be great. Nothing to worry about. Same thing, if you take the thing, there will be no transmissions. Remember that whole joke? Experts told us a lot of things. When the adults are back in charge, there'll be no wars. And we just listen to the experts. The border's not a problem. Inflation Reduction Act is going to reduce inflation. Got it. It was the most free and secure, fair election of all time. Then we learned, oh no, Biden's campaign was colluding with Michael Morrell of the CIA. The CIA paid for their contractors and endorsed the 51 laptop letter that resulted in Biden having a talking point for the debate. The CIA was rigging it. The FBI was rigging it. The social media companies were colluding with them to rig it. And we all saw what happened. So now Jack Smith is going to go through and cherry pick the worst of the worst conversations and put them into this brief. But I have to say, having read this in detail with you here for the first time, I skimmed it before we hopped on here just so I could know the structure of what we were getting into. But it's a lot of the same. There's really not any new damning evidence. It's the same stuff we heard from Liz Cheney at the J6 hearing saga. And it's not all that new or interesting. They're still making the same points that they've been making for the last 3.5 years. And the question is it going to matter? Are the American people going to care at all about this 6-hour riot that was the result of them censoring and lying to us about a so-called free and fair election? I don't think so. So for something that was supposed to be a giant October surprise and supposed to be filled with a bunch of really juicy bits in there, I'm not so sure it's going to land the way that they wanted it to. I understand the need to deviate from Tim Walz's poor performance and why they might want to publish this at this time, but there's not much new, really. Quite frankly, we already knew Trump was talking to these people. We already knew that there were phone calls about alternate electors and that Trump was asking about votes and that he was the person who was the person suffering from the fraud, which is why he was asking about his elections. But that's it. Of the 165 pages, they walked us through all the states twice, basically. All right. Well, we'll see what Trump's team says in response. I'm looking forward to Trump's team's response. It's going to be good. I'm sure of it. And so we'll see if they get 165 pages. And when they file it, you better believe we're going to be covering that, baby. And so hopefully you join us as we do, my friends. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for sharing this with a friend or family member. If you made it through this whole one with us, thanks for doing it, because this is it from Molly and Jack. Womp. All right, let's see what you guys say about it. It's a beautiful day. We've got Jack's Raging TDS is now on the docket. And that's all we got from that. All right. Well, let's see what you guys say about it. It is a beautiful day. We have some amazing friends in the house. Starting off with Denise Weesey. Denise Weesey's in the house with a very nice dono, starting the day off. It's hump day. What's up, Denise Weesey? Just became our new supporter. Good to see you, Denise. Carrie Jurgens, what's up? Also became a supporter. Nice to have you. Milo Phone Bill says, is Tim Tiananmen Square, is he lying like Dan Quayle's potato? With an E. Good question. CL says, the gag be damned, all right? Trump needs to talk. Yeah. It's an interesting contradiction where they're saying Trump should be gagged, but Jack should be given a bullhorn. John Libby. Hey, Rob. Is there any way that we could, as listeners, contact our House members and see about sanctioning the J6 judge? Thank you. Not really sanctioning the judge. The J6, the House members don't have any real jurisdiction over that. They could impeach the judge, maybe is what you're asking about, but they're not going to do that either. So, yeah, the likelihood that anything is going to happen to this judge is extremely low. That's the power of being a federal judge. But it's a nice idea, John. You could still make your complaint, make your voice heard if you're feeling civically minded, but there's not much that they can or will do. Tony Hay Munkets bringing in 10 new membos. Julie Otting, we got April Maids coming in. Kat McC, we got Scoop in the house. Billy Rice, Darlene Archambault, welcome. Tam Tam, we got Eat Randall, Muffin Rando saying what's up. Marvin Martian and Donnie Brewer gifting membos in, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Thank you, Tony Hay, for bringing them in. What's up, Mark Nielsen? Been a membo for 7 months. Says, can Jack Smith be sanctioned for the Florida case? Another one that's unlikely. Unlikely, because I think he's got a plausible basis for his position, which is the DC Circuit and the Court of Appeals there. So the qualified immunity from that case, I think, will protect him from any recourse in Florida, which is why Cannon didn't really go down that line. Hey, Cheryl Johnson says, if Trump cannot confront his accuser, are there legal remedies? Well, they're kind of in the middle of it right now. So Trump's going to respond to this, obviously, and there's not going to be any opportunity to, it's on the public docket. So there's not going to be any appeals or interlocutory appeals to the higher level courts. So not really. I mean, they dumped it on the public docket. Trump's biggest victory here is going to be a dismissal of the case. So the remedy to confront your accuser is going to be rectified at trial, and Trump will respond to this filing and we'll read it. But no, otherwise, I mean, that's part of the reason they probably went quickly, is so Trump couldn't file anything else to try to stop the publication of the document. What's up? Cheryl Johnson says, what a clown show. The court, not the stream. The court, not the stream. 20 months as a membo, Dax. Dax Inth in the house. Very nice to see you, Dax. Thanks for being a membo for 20 months. That's over 2 babies. We got Alan Harkin. What's up, Alan? Good to see you. Our friend over on Rumble says, I know you are more knowledgeable than I about these things, but it seems an attorney could be brought before the bar for such unethical filings, etc. Regardless, you are ethical and a great explainer. Thank you for that, Alan. Yeah, you would think that. It depends on the jurisdiction, and I guess it depends on the prosecutor. Like, for example, Fani Willis, no one even cares in Georgia. She's a very corrupt prosecutor who lied to the court in Judge McAfee's courtroom, no repercussions at all. She can just carry on as though nothing happened. Same thing would happen with Jack Smith. He's in D.C. He's protected there. That jurisdiction, no one's going to complain about Jack. In fact, they probably have photos of him in their bedrooms. You know what I mean? Alan, thanks for that, Alan. Very nice of you. NY says, the best revenge Trump can realize after he is elected is to appoint appropriate judges to the D.C. circuit, to neuter judges like Chutkan. Yeah, just inundate them with better judges. This old guy says, sounds a lot to me like Tanya Chutkan co-authored the 165-page motion for immunity. In fact, I think she came up with that stupid name. Yeah, they're probably texting each other back and forth. Hey, Rick Donner. What's up, Rick? Rick! Welcome, Rick. We've got this one. Willie Lutheran, Francie Waller's coming in, Warlord Soar, Crush Groove, and Jay Liebgott, gifted membos, courtesy of Rick in the house. Thank you, Rick. Hey, Penguin, gifted a membo. No, 16 months as a membo. Says, much like Tim Walz, Jack will never be a real boy. No, he won't. Jack will never be a real boy. He wants to be a real boy so badly. You're not, Jack. You're never going to be one. Patriot Rob says, I think for future cases, a separate panel should be convened to determine immunity in all immunities cases. Yeah, I don't know if we'll see anything else like this again, because it's only being brought out to stop Trump. One old guy's opinion says, anyone remember or have seen the 60s TV show called Lost in Space? Every time Jack Smith comes up with a filing, when the polls show Harris losing, I think of Dr. Smith saying, never fear, Smith is here. And I think this might be an excerpt from it. Lost in Space, Jack Smith, and Zachary Smith. Hey, James Butler says, JD crushed it last night. I'm impressed CBS traveled back to 1988 to find a mean girl from the movie Heathers and plopped her down as a moderator in pink. Yeah, that's interesting. JD shut her down. Where are my meme makers at? From James Butler. Yeah, that's an interesting one. They were two interesting moderators. And apparently this is, yeah, that looks about right. I couldn't place the movie, but Donut's clipping for us and bringing in the references. Thank you, Donut. ELZ says, this case will eventually go down, just like Mercan's case in New York. If Chutkan ignores the legal canon and tells the jurors what the law is, then of course Trump will be found guilty. Brian says, every time Jack says knowingly and fraudulently, he loses on immunity. Those require mens rea. SCOTUS says the motives of POTUS can't be examined. Yeah, they're trying to fill it in. And he's not allowed to contact. And there was a lot of like admissions. Well, if he is allowed to contact, then we still overcome that. One old guy says 3:33 a.m. is the beginning of the witching hour. That is when all the mystery votes came in. It is also when the feds like to raid houses. Says, let's hear it for Molly to Molly with the highlighter, the tabs, and the spell check word processor. Shout out to Molly to Molly. Highlighter gal. Improv Man says, wait, is there any way just to know his legal strategy before he announced it? Well, this is it. I mean, this was about as close as we're going to get to his trial script that I think we'll ever see. So we do have that as a silver lining, but we would rather have that in trial, not smearing Trump in the days before the election. Hey, what's up? Ty Cod says, it's baby time. New baby in the house. Thank you, Ty Cod. Welcome aboard. Going to be a soccer player and very smart, I can tell. Thank you, Ty Cod, for being a membo for 9 full months. That's a full baby. That's a long time. Thank you, Ty. What's up? Tony Hay Munkets, 10 new membos coming in. Squatch Girl, welcome. Mexican Marauders here. BT, NY Renal. We got Ken Phillips, Captain Flatastic, Amilana. We got Wheezy Bob, Dirk from Texas, and Guitar Man in the house. Gifted membos, courtesy of Hey Hey, it's the Munkets. One old guy's opinion says, did anyone else laugh their booty off as JD Vance biatch slapped no balls walls in the communist broadcasting system last night? It was a good one. Sheila says, excuse me, Jack. We still believe there was outcome determinative fraud. Just because the courts refused to all pursue to not pursue the proving of that in the courts does not make our beliefs false. From Sheila Poo. Yeah, I think as time goes on, we are more and more confirmed, not less. What's up? Tony Hay Munkets is bringing in 10 more membos. Thank you, Tony Hay. Bill Leslie, what's up? Juju Queen, we got Penguin Man, Face of America, Joel Reyes, Larry Bro. What's up? Joe Dirt is here, Stephanie, Adam M, and D. Marie. Gifted membos, courtesy of Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. And Rice Baby is here. What's up? Bruce Rice Baby bringing in 50 membos, Bruce. Oh my gosh, Bruce, you're amazing. Let's welcome him in. W Quack, Azok, Unknown Caller, One Jump Bob in the house. My Bet, Rodney, Lauren Wimberly, Sam, Mickey, Stephen F, Jack, Carol Myers, Dan Hill, Pam Lamp, Victo, Memo in the house. Memo, what's up, Philip H, Randy Campbell, Joanna, Bill H, Keyhole, Starling Lee, Joe Coburn, Cat Mama, Jay Holland, Old School, Aussie Nan, Vicky Ballou. What's up, Dan Callaghan? We got Bama Kristen. Lexi's here. We got Don Harshman, L Lambert, JL Dubs in the house, Shane Rochester, Mimi, Roy Adams, Steven Sayers, I Kimbo, James Chauncey, Michael LaValle, Chain of Custody, Don Miller, Lactonic, Karen Bush, Bruce Little, Sean Lucifer, Christian Pometko, Robert Mead, and a pear tree, and a partridge in a pear tree in the house, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing in 50 new membos. You're amazing. We love you. And welcome aboard, new friends. Grab that morning members only stream. We had a great members only stream talking about the debate. So if you missed that, be sure to check that out. Welcome, new friends. What's up? Rick D says, wow, Oatmeal Brains just took credit for something President Trump openly spoke about arranging just 2 days ago. Sheila Poo is bringing in 5 more membos. Katania Nana, welcome. Gary Pearson, G Tria, Calbo Dave, and 24/7 Live AZ Skies gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Poo. Thank you, Sheila. Tony Hay Munkett says, Trump doesn't win. What are we going to do? I'm stressed out. Win. That's it. We're just going to win. That's it. Patriot Rob says, can you explain lack of standing? I hear that about things that should be obvious that the person has standing, like in Trump's case. Yeah, well, standing's a complicated one. Yeah, it's you know, does the person have redressability? Can we actually solve this for this person? Standing incorporates a bunch of other things like mootness, ripeness, and other subcomponents, but it's also something that can be perverted however the courts want to, essentially. Well, you didn't file that early enough. Oh, you filed that too late. Oh, you're the wrong party. It's one of those. One old guy says, it was great for DNC that judges never looked at the evidence of fraud in court. BS, swamp creatures, and wannabe swamp creatures stole the election. Hey, Ollie's here, bringing in Zach J as a new membo. Chubby's over on Local says, the MSM is going to run rampant with this propaganda and this narrative filled by Smith as they've planned. We can only hope enough sane people will raise their voice and rebuke all of the already debunked falsehoods that is riddled herein. Here's to hoping that the Republican surprise is as big and as damaging as Hillary alluded to. Well, and I think that Kamala is worse than Hillary in the hierarchy of things. Sheila Poo says it's the job of the executive to verify the veracity of the results. It means that all actions taken related to investigating fraud and the alternate panels of electors were required actions by the president. Rick Donner is spitting beer, sharing links over on Locals. I'm sure it's a good one. We got Sarah Williams, membo for 4 months, says thank you for helping us understand. Thank you, Sarah Williams, for being a membo for 4 months and joining us, supporting us as we go through this stuff. We got Larry says, dear stakeholders, cybersecurity and infrastructure, CISA, their chemical security assessment school, was a target of a cybersecurity intrusion by a malicious actor from January 23rd to the 26th, 2024. Hey, here's one. Please listen to this on your own time, Rob. It's called Proclamation by Gentle Giant, called Progressive Rock Music. we were talking about melodic music and how I like melodic music, usually instrumentals. Thank you, Boopsy. Looks like a good one. One old guy says, if the VP had no authority, why did they have to amend the VP role? Great question, one old guys, because he did. Hey, Sheila Poo says, 5 membos, welcome, are coming in. Lisa T's coming in. We got Lisa T and Lisa, welcome. AF5WO, quote, field boss in the house. Miko Stars coming in, and Rachel K gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila Poo. A million hugs to you, Sheila. Thanks for them. And welcome, new friends. Chris, what's up? Welcome. Says, how's it going? Oh, it's going great, Chris. How you doing? Thanks for being here. Ines Fad says, got to give Rob a bit of a tip for suffering through the reading of this garbage. Tell me about it. We had to do it. We had to do it. I was debating on how to handle this one today. I'm like, it's a big one. 165 pages of Jack Smith's garbage. Ugh. But we had to do it. All right, Gloria B, what's up? Don't be hating. Got a membo, courtesy of Gloria B. Chubby Stubby says, I seriously doubt Trump called Pence, quote, too honest. That sounds like something added later, just like Clavicle Girl's testimonies. I wonder if the real transcript of that interview will ever surface. Glocky says, the Democrats have already started the lie. Yeah, there it is. Make them riot. Make them riot. It's a total lie. What did I say? Page 8 in the thing? Page 8. He gave the order to attack the Capitol. Never happened. No, yeah, there was page 8. There it is. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Tristan, why are you lying about it? Hey, Rhetoric by Eric says, can VP Kamala certify an election when she's one of the candidates? Yeah, I think she's going to be in the Senate. She's going to be doing that today, hopefully, or in January. Hopefully she'll lose it. And she'll have to certify her loss. It's going to be great. 200 Watt Studio says, is this total BS or what? Left tweeter is high-fiving themselves over it. That's just what they do. That's just all they do. They can't get over it. Hey, E. Harris says, make them regret it. You and Viva and Barnes and whoever else should brainstorm every point possible and submit that to his team. Teach them a lesson. Hey, Lisa T. Lisa T says, my 98-year-old mom is still in love with you. Shout out to Lisa T's 98-year-old mom. You can tell her I love her back, all right? Thanks for being here. Amazing. Shout out to Lisa T and Mama Lisa T. Amazing. We love you. Thanks for being here. Hey, E. Harris. Thanks for that comment. I think Trump's team is going to do an amazing job. Wheezy Bob says, I am now an Arizona resident. One more vote for Trump. One more vote for Trump. Thanks for that, Wheezy Bob. We need it. 10 months as a member. That's a baby. And then some. Rick D says, the trail of darkness from power outages from Helene. Oh my gosh, that's horrific. Yeah, that's horrific. So prayers for our friends on the East Coast. Hey, Lisa, Membo for 7 months says, heard today Trump still has snakes in his circle. I don't doubt that. We're talking politics. They're everywhere. Hey, Knox Bierman is a defense attorney in Texas. Says, happy Wednesday, all. That could be the most boring document we have ever reviewed. It was pretty bad. And I was fast forwarding too. Pretty, not that quickly. I mean, we went through a lot of it. But it was pretty boring. I'm like, ugh, how much longer is this going to go on? Sheesh. Rick D, the head of the Longshoremen's Union Home. It's nice. Yeah, it's a nice spot. It's a nice spot. I was thinking, why did I go to law school? I should have just been a longshoreman. That's amazing. Hey, what's up? Les L. Hi, Robert. Please let some Republican contacts know Harris campaign and their deceptive ads on YouTube may be doing damage into Cobb and Fulton counties, Georgia. I see no Republican counter ads. Well, hopefully they're listening. Do something about that. We have to win Georgia big time. Thanks, Les, for seeing that. Yeah, I hear they're advertising on this show too, which I'm not mad about because that means they're paying us to do this show. I hope they keep sponsoring us because nobody here is voting for them, I don't think. Except maybe one person who I can think of. Dad Pools, what's up? Became a new supporter. Glocky is sharing this, says Trump just responded to this being released. He says, I didn't rig the 2020 election. They did. Woodchip Bill says TI's filling will hit the news stream, whereas Trump's rebuttal will never be heard by the public. Jack Mack, what's up, Jack? Good to see you. Bringing in one new membo. James Grant, gift in 10 membos. Thank you, James. Look who's coming in. Fruit fly sadist in the house. Which, you know, I mean, who wasn't a fruit fly sadist when you were a little boy? Donna Dobbs, Ian Keeler, and Ants, too, with magnifying glasses, which wasn't a nice thing to do, but, you know, you're 7 and you have magnifying glasses. What are you supposed to do? Dissident Porcupine, Zach Bennett, an internet loser. Welcome. Glad to have you. Zach on the Glass, Left Right, Irene Abbott, Von Miller's Crossing, gifted membos, courtesy of James Grant. Thank you, James Grant, for being a membo and for bringing in 10 new membos. We got Les L. Says the Georgia ads seem high impact if they're believed. For example, Trump plans a national sales tax to cost $4,000 per family. Another Trump is making plans for his billionaire friends, but Harris will suddenly reach across the aisle somehow. Yeah, not counting on that one either. There's a lot of them. Arizona's getting bombarded with these. I'm at the gym. I see them all over the place. There's a lot. Hey, MJ Powell says, hit that like button, watchers. Thank you, MJ. Great to see you. Lenny Malley says, always. Thank you, MJ. Thank you, Lenny. Les L says, thanks, Robert. As you know, Georgia is razor thin. Please help get some attention on the deceptive Harris campaign ads in Georgia and lack of coherent Republican counters as per the earlier super chats. Yeah, I hope that Trump is spending there and the Republicans are spending there, right? All those swing states. I wonder what our Georgia friends say about that. Are you guys seeing other ads? Maybe you're just not seeing it on the YouTubes. Interesting. Bodie, what's going on with Bank of America? Don't know. First Verizon, now Bank of America showing $0 in accounts. Yeah, my phone got taken out by Verizon yesterday. Thought it was the feds. Then I realized it's everybody. We all got taken out by the feds. Rick D says, Rob, I'm curious. I watch a number of attorneys who react to things, and they always print on blue sheets. Like they write on blue sheets. I don't know. Why blue? I don't know why they do that. I've not seen or heard of that. Larry, what's up? Says, in summary, not a real boy has not a real case from Larry. Hey, 200 Watt Studio says, motorboat to get out the vote. From Sydney Sweeney. Ugh. It would get out votes, that's for sure. Hey, Les L says, Republican response to these ads seemed like low-hanging fruit or ultimate would-be JFK Tulsi event in Atlanta to counter Harris and the ad claim that she is the one who will reach across the aisle. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, Kamala should defeat herself. We just have to remind people about her policies, obviously. And I think they're in the process of doing that. Thank you, Les L. And Stephen M says 34 counts not appealed on multiplicity. WTF from Stephen Mosher in the house. Thank you, Stephen. And oh my goodness, we've got 20 new membos coming in, courtesy of MJ Powell in the house. MJ Powell is bringing in, let's count them out. Blue Nose Bob, Daniel Nordstrom, Barbara Norton, V's coming in, Noel West, Sue's welcome, Full Green Light, Julius VC, Willie Nelson's Willie is coming in. We got Willie D, Barry M, Justice Shorty Searching for Truth, Renee Barnes, Tommy Bones, Keister Bunny's here, and DI herself, Woke Racist Really Suck, and Rodney Jewett and Kitchen Mortician, gifted membos, courtesy of MJ Powell in the house. And my friends, what a bunch of great donos here today. Thank you for sending them all in. Thanks everybody for being amazing friends of ours and inviting a bunch of new people to come in here and join us. Let's say hello to our friends on X very quickly before we go to locals to round it out on the day for a short after party. We had a couple friends on X, some quick shout outs to who is over there. Paul Mino. Oh my gosh, look at this. All right. Rob, great show as usual. You're really good at what you do and left no stone unturned. Thank you, Paul. It leaves me with only one question. Is this a cute dog or the cutest dog? Dang. That's It might be the cutest dog. I don't know. It's pretty close. That's a close call. You'll have to check with the chat. It's either the cutest dog or a cute dog. I think it might be the cutest. All right, what's up, Raven Madness? But if you have a dog at home, you're obviously going to disagree with that because no one's cuter than your real good boy. Paul, congrats on a new puppy, man. That looks awesome. Congrats to you. New addition to the fam. New puppy and at the Paul Me No household. It's great, man. Congratulations on that. New BFF for life, and that's a lot of fun. James Pepper, what's up? B. Torn's over there. Fred Pedamonte's over there. Said Molly probably told Barr that there was no fraud. James Pepper, it's great to see you. Norman Lee Smith. Hey, Norman Lee Smith is sharing a Spotify, and so we'll repost this over here, and we'll listen to that. Looks like a good one. So Norman Lee Smith makes some music, so we'll go listen to that here. And other comments from Jay Russell and others. And so, my friends, that is where we are going to leave it on the day. We're going to go say goodbyes over on Locals and wrap it up over there. Members, tomorrow, we're going to be 1 hour earlier on our members only stream. So it's going to be at 8 Pacific my time. So that's going to be noon East Coast time, Eastern time tomorrow. 1 hour earlier, and it's going to be great. So until then, my friends, I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being amazing friends of the show and joining us as we go through even some of these more difficult briefs. We're making history. We're going through history together, and we're glad to be here doing it with you. So tomorrow, we're going to be back here, same time, same location to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, well, you know what that means. We're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.